All right, thank you.
2 minutes.
O'clock, and it's time to call the May 28th work session meeting to order. I'd like to thank all those in attendance and all those that are online. We're going to start with a roll call. Elizabeth?
Mayor Harker.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cooper.
Here.
Commissioner Gilligan.
Here.
Commissioner LaPiccolo.
Here.
Commissioner Oliver.
Here.
Commissioner Spiegler.
Here.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So approved. So move.
Thank you. Got a motion on the floor. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Now we're going to have a special presentation today. I'm so happy to see so many young faces in the audience. I don't know what to do with myself. So we have a presentation for Adopt a Dream program with the East Carteret High School students from the Environmental Club and the National Art Honor Society. They're going to be supported by their teachers, Ms. Tammy Schooley and Mr. Michael Reinhardt. So if you would like to come on up and start with your presentation. Hi. Now, if you want to pull your mic down, we'll be able to hear you. And what is your name?
My name is Gemma Campbell Godfrey.
All right, Miss Gemma.
Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to speak to you today. We are the East Carteret High School Environmental Club, along with some members from the National Art Honor Society, and we are here today to talk to you about the data we've collected about storm drains on both Ann Street and Front Street, and basically present that data to you in this presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so why do we care about stormwater and pollution in our storm drains? So Carteret County is 68% water, and a lot of our daily lives revolve around water, from recreational activities to commercial fishing. And so the East Carteret High School Environmental Club has been collecting data about pollution and debris in and around our storm drains, because ocean debris is on the rise, and one of the main ways that ocean pollution gets from land to sea is from our storm drains. So the National Honor Society and the Environmental Club have been working together to raise awareness about storm drain pollution, and Anna Swinson from the National Honor Society is going to talk about some of the projects that NAS has done to raise awareness.
So in the summer of 2023, we raised awareness at the Beaufort Farmers Market with drafts of our drain art and got some feedback on our designs. We painted our first drain art at Art in the Park in November 2023. And we painted a second drain at Art in the Park in December 2023. Multiple students contributed to this project and received positive feedback from other Art in the Park participants for both the creative design and raising awareness for our drains. And now here is Kayla with Adopt a Drain.
Another way that the community can help is by putting in observations in Adopt a Drain. And this is actually a very easy process. So the only thing you have to do, you have to download the Anecdata app and create an account, and then join the Adopt a Drain project, and then just click the Make a New Observation button. And when you make an observation, the things that you have to include are the location, the weather or like type of drain or recent rain, and then different trash and debris. And then it's also very helpful to add a picture. and then all you have to do is click the blue save button, and this helps us collect our data.
So using ANIC data and its easy interface, the East Carteret Environmental Club got 250 observations in 2024 alone, and in those 250 observations, we logged 181 pieces of trash on both Ann Street and Front Street. And we made some graphs using the data that we collected, and it shows the difference of trash on both Front Street and Ann Street. So in this first graph, there are two main things that stick out. First of all, Front Street has a greater variety of trash than Ann Street does. And secondly, the two most prominent categories of trash were cigarette filters and plastic pieces. And this second graph really puts it into frame just how much more trash was on Front Street in and around the storm drains versus the ones on Ann Street.
Okay, with the data collected from the drains, we have come to a main takeaway that there is trash surrounding our storm drains, and this trash can leak into our waterways, which affects the wildlife around us, not just us. The excess pollutants near the drains can cause water backup during heavy rains, which Beaufort tends to get a lot. And ECHS is removing trash and raising awareness with the help of others, such as the National Art Honor Society and members that couldn't be here today. And our main question is, what are additional ways ECHS students can work with the town of Beaufort to decrease plastic in our waterways?
That was our presentation, and we're now inviting the other members of the Environmental Club to come up and answer any possible questions that you guys might have.
Okay. Well, thank you for such a wonderful presentation and all of the activism that you've done to bring awareness to our environment. And you have two commissioners here on the board, and all the other commissioners here are strongly aware of how we are supposed to be good stewards to our community, and thank you for that. So I'll start with Commissioner LoPiccolo. Do you have any questions for the environmental group?
I do. First, I want to say thank you all for coming and such a fantastic presentation, all the hard work you guys have done over the year collecting all that data, taking time out of your lives to spend hours scouring the town and checking the drains and making sure that they're and removing debris from the town. So thank you for that. Yeah, I do have a question. I was curious with the data that you presented, if you noticed that at any particular time of the year that you saw peaks or spikes of increased trash at the drains, because I know we do have sometimes parades in town and things that might increase the amount of debris. Is the town doing a good job, or do you see that there's lots of other debris that's still around, that's maybe still laying around town from different times of the year, holidays, events, things like that?
So I don't think there were any major parades or events that happened while we were collecting the data, because we collected the data from February to May. But I went out a lot of times and observed the drains, and I noticed that as we are getting into the summer months, especially, correlation does not equal causation, but I think as tourism has been growing, there has been more trash, I've noticed, on Front Street and Ann Street. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gilligan?
Well, first of all, a comment that as a former mariner, I am just swelling with pride for each of you, and just so excited you're here. I felt myself like welling up with tears for a second. There was no environmental club when I was at East, but I'm really excited that you're doing what you're doing. And every time I drive over the art on Carteret Avenue every morning, I'm just so appreciative of what y'all have done, so thank you. I want to ask you all if you think it would be interesting to compare the composition of the debris, so the types of the debris and the abundance, to maybe debris that is removed from, for example, the Rachel Carson Reserve or other places around town when there are cleanups, because there is a record of that data. I kind of wonder if y'all would be interested in looking at that at some point.
That would definitely be interesting because we could really see if the pollution in the storm drain is really leading out into our waterways and causing harm and disruption to wildlife. So thank you.
Yeah, great. Just an idea there for you. And I just want to congratulate you again. And Gemma, I only got your name, but to the other presenters, thank you also for stepping up. So if I could get your names, that would be awesome.
It was Gemma, Kayla, and who was the other presenter?
I'm Anna Swenson.
Anna. Okay.
And my name was Andy Migliori.
Great. Thanks, ladies. That was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Cooper?
Yes, great job, guys, and it's so glad to see the young people because it starts with us as the adults, and it has to trickle down to the youth, and you guys doing what you're doing, going out and collecting data, seeing where the problem is, what the problem is in terms of cigarette butts and plastic. And we here on the commissioner board, and the mayor is on a plastic-free committee or group where we're trying to get people aware of, such as like in grocery stores, and rather than using their plastic, bring the bags so that we can reduce the amount of plastic that we do. So, I mean, kudos, guys, because we're gonna have to pass that baton on to you guys over the years and get this thing done. And the environment, and to save the environment, is gonna take all of us. And again, I want to thank you all for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Oliver?
Again, we all are tickled with what you're doing. Tell me more about the app and what's the purpose of the app, and what we can do to promote the app.
So the app, it has multiple different projects on it, but Adapt-A-Drain, it just makes it so that all the data is like easily accessible, and you can see like every drain kind of in a map and press on it, and you can basically see what types of trash were there throughout the days. And anybody can make an observation, and kind of our goal with that is it's like easy enough to access where like even younger students could do it. Really anyone with access to a phone and like an app store can do it, and it can just help us like collect that data and kind of show what's happening in our drains.
So that's an action item that you would like to see us promote,
Yes.
is that website?
Yes.
Okay, and you've looked at 250 drains in Beaufort thus far.
Yes, we did all the ones from Gordon Street to the end of the street on both Ann Street and Front Street.
Right. And how many have you painted and decorated with the logo?
That I'm not actually in NAS. Do you want to?
We've only done 2 so far, but we're looking to do more drains.
What do you need? What help do you need to do more of that? Because that certainly catches everybody's attention and puts a clear identification of your project.
I'd say more in terms of like supplies, maybe paintbrushes and mural paint, but also more talk around these times of painting, because when we did art in the park, we had a lot of other stations for younger kids to participate in this, and I feel like that's a good way of
Would
bringing.
would it help if the mayor included this in the newsletter for some times and promoted the app, and also promoted getting supplies and promoting the marking that you've done on the drains? Would that be an action item that you would always support?
Yes, it would help us just spread the word around a lot.
And what other ideas do you have that we can help you with? How can we help you? Not all at once.
And you don't have to answer it all today. You all have our emails, and we're
Right.
very open and receptive, so don't feel on the spot, but go ahead.
I think more like awareness in the communities, like community cleanups, and just really in general, like promoting the use of reusable bags, bottles, and containers are all like all good starters for really like raising awareness to how much plastic we're using. I'd say that. Give me more. Just awareness. Like
let me take the pressure off of you.
Oh.
They need money. And in order for supplies, you have to have money.
Well, it's amazing how I'm going to ask for money to help with projects like this. So hopefully, with the budget session, everybody will say yes. Thank you so much.
You got here
This was not planned at all.
just in time. Perfect.
This is not planned at all, but this is the pressure on the commissioners to give me some money to help you guys out. And then we can make that difference.
Where do you buy your paint? Where in Beaufort do you buy your paint?
So we typically order online. We'd love to find a local business that can help us out.
I bet we can find that.
Yes. Commissioner Spiegler?
Thank you. You stole a lot of my questions, but yes. I just want to say thank y'all so much for coming up here. I know it's a big deal to come talk in front of the commissioners, but we, as you've heard, very, very much appreciate all of your efforts, and this is where the change starts. So very much appreciate you being here and letting us know, starting the awareness campaign right now, what you're doing. I love that one over by Randolph Johnson. I have a 1-year-old, and we stroll over there, and I love checking out that drain. So I would be very supportive of having a campaign where we paint as many drains as possible. I had a few comments. I'll just build off Commissioner Oliver. So I know how hard it is in my day job at Sea Grant in Morehead City. I know how challenging it is to actually change people's behavior, which is essentially what y'all are trying to do. And I think this is a great start, the outreach and the awareness. It's very challenging, but we have a really special community here in Beaufort, and we all know that y'all are part of that very special community right now, and you're here speaking to us. So I was wondering, you know, and as Mayor Harker just said, we're not going to think of all the solutions today, but how can we in this very special community put our heads together and think of some real actionable items? We have a great start with some of the things we've discussed. I had an example I was going to bring up. What if we installed refillable water bottle stations on Front Street for all the tourists that come, all of the residents, put them in our public restrooms. I've seen communities up in Manio do that. We have them in our CMAS building in Morehead City. That would be, it's, you know, you need water when you're downtown. It's really hot. So how can we help people use those refillable water bottles? We need filling stations, I think. Y'all are doing a great job. What you're doing, we call that citizen science or community science, I guess now in my job, and y'all are right on that path. I love this idea of how can you make the app more usable? How can you, well, it's already usable. How can you get more people using it? That just increases your reach. So I think that's a great goal. But really, I'd love to hear your ideas and how can the commissioners and the town of Beaufort work with y'all to help implement some of these actionable solutions. So like Mayor Harker said, please keep thinking and come back to us and let us know if you have more great ideas. I think that's about it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Do you roll your thing back so I can write down the website?
Yeah, can we roll back to the front, or the first slide? I just want to highlight the other groups that were involved with this.
Oh.
And can you guys speak to the other groups that you guys work with one more behind,
slide,
I think?
yes. The River Wash.
And how the app was developed and so forth? Unless somebody here, did you guys write the app?
We originally developed the adopted Journey app because it was pretty clear. Most of you know that I work on microbial contaminants.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to see, can't see bacteria and viruses in the water, and then the same conversations with Liz at Duke. People can't see nitrogen, nitrate, they can't see nutrients. And so the Adopted Drain app essentially came from being able to take something that's relatively abstract and the kinds of contaminants that can't be seen and bring that up a few notches so that you can actually observe what's going into the estuaries and to the open ocean. And really allowing people to visually, sensory connect to what's going into the drains and then understanding that transport of materials without having to think about viruses and bacteria. So we actually developed the app, I think, in Originally it failed, they had an app designer, and anyway, we won't go through that whole story. But at this point in time, it is built around the concept of a citizen science information gathering. But we would love to make it more usable. We'd love to bring businesses on board to understanding. Our feeling is that if the students and our members of the community can understand the main sources of where some of the litter, plastics, and even other debris that causes clogging of the storm drain systems, we can understand where it's coming from, then you can actually take some actions, going to businesses and trying to work with them, or going even to practices that are conducted in our coastal towns that are not always the most beneficial because of clearing and so forth. It really helps for people to kind of visualize that. So it's a collaborative effort, really initially between UNC Chapel Hill and at the Institute of Marine Sciences and Duke, and then in later times have brought on the advocacy capabilities of the Coastal Carolina River Watch, and Lisa is here, Lisa Ryder from Coastal Carolina River Watch. And also we've had really great support out of Riley Lewis Waterkeeper. And that's been a really beneficial arm of this collaboration because of their reach into the community on that advocacy front. So we hope to really expand it. We'd really like to expand its use across the state. We've thought about partnering with other organizations like Surfrider or other external organizations. Kind of very open, and its home is here, so we'd like to have it be used to the best of its ability here in the town of Beaufort.
Great. Yeah, I could see how it could expand across the state. So appreciate what you guys have done.
Paula, to your question about the data mirrors collection mirrors all the marine debris cleanups from NOAA, the NOAA website and the Ocean Conservancy website of what they track. So the data are very comparable.
Yeah, I thought that looked familiar. Thank you, Liz.
So what is the app specific name?
That's the first.
Anecdata is the housing, and then if you go in the search bar for Adopt a Drain, because Anecdata houses about 200 citizen science projects, and then if you go in the search bar and put Adopt a Drain, you'll find that's how you join it.
I'll send that link to Elizabeth, and she can share it with all of you.
Absolutely. Now, we will go ahead, and if you don't mind sharing your PowerPoint presentation, would like to be able to attach that to the mayor's page. Underneath our conservation program, I've got a mayor's conservation program. And I know that you guys have asked what we could do to support your effort, and it's to continue to speak volumes. We need to hear your voice. We need to have you continue to advocate for this important issue that we have. Living on the coast, we've got to be good coastal stewards. We've got a responsibility, and the town has been wanting to achieve good clean water, good environmental stewardship. We do have sea level rise. All these conditions are true, and having you guys as our backup team, I guess as the backup dancers, would be very helpful because we need to see that, and people need to see how our youth is really interested in what's going on today. So whatever we have today, as pretty as it is, we would like for it to be just as pretty for your generation and that generation to come, but it's going to involve all of you. And we're more than willing to be a partner in that endeavor. So I want to thank you both for having the courage to come up and speak. I know it's difficult. You did a fantastic job, the Environmental Club and the Art Honor Society. I want to thank you for collaborating together to bring awareness to this important issue, and we're so deeply grateful for that. I also want to be able to acknowledge the invaluable support that you've had through your teachers, Ms. Schooley, as well as Mr. Reinhardt. Your mentorship has played a pivotal role in having the students not only pull up a wonderful presentation, but to be aware of their surroundings and to be part of this community. And I want to thank you both for your efforts. So on behalf of the commissioners and myself, I have a little special something for you that I would like you to take home as our way of saying, oh, it's a small appreciation for a bigger appreciation of what you've been doing. So I have 2 certificates, Ms. Schooley, Mr. Reinhardt, if you can come up, please.
1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming.
Hey, how are you?
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I got one. Thank you, guys.
So before we continue on to the next presentation, I would like to give a kudos to Rachel Johnson, our Public Information Officer, who wears several hats. And it had been stated that without her efforts in making this program happen, we wouldn't be here today. So Rachel, thank you. I know that you like to lay low, but I'm going to put you on a pedestal today. I appreciate all that you do. All right,
Thank
tell us. Thank you. And she has a partner in crime, that's Elizabeth, that helps make these things happen as well. So we're going to move on to items for review and discussion. We have Fountain Works, the results of the Harbor and Waterway Charrette. Todd?
Thank you, Mayor. We have joining us remotely today, Warren Miller, and
Hey, Warren.
I'm not sure if Warren's got Rachel with him or not. Hey, Rachel, how are you? Good to see both of you. So Rachel and Warren are with Fountain Works. And of course, we had a charrette earlier this month regarding our waterfront project and developing some thoughts about which direction we go with some of the items and aspects of the project that will be constructed. And so Warren and Rachel are here to make a presentation on the findings of the charrette and the survey. So Warren, thanks. Appreciate you being here.
Great, thank you, Todd. Good evening, Mayor Harker. Good evening, members of the board. Pleased to be with you this evening. And thank you for having us for this presentation. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So we're going to share our screen and we're going to walk through a few slides with you and give you an overview of what we learned with the community engagement around the future of the harbor and waterways. So we'll go ahead and share our screen.
I think the screen sharing is disabled.
I think we need your permission.
Give me just a second.
All right.
You know how to do that, Jason? Try it now.
Oh, very good. Okay. Alrighty. So what I'd like to do is walk you through, I'll start with just our process. The overall purpose of this was to understand the needs, the aspirations, the interests of the community as it relates to the future of the harbor and waterfront. what we did is we facilitated 2 public forums, 2 charrettes on May 6th at the fire station. At the forum, we had estimated a total of over 150 participants over 2 days, or excuse me, over 2 sessions. In addition to the charrettes, there was also an online community survey, which ran from May 6th to May 10th. As you can see, there were 174 responses. So most of the people, we did track to see the participation of the survey. Most of those who did participate in the survey did not participate also in the charrette. So you had strong public participation in this process from the community. And so what I'd like to do is just walk through what we asked them and what we learned, and then we'll open it up for questions. So there were 4 focus areas, 4 stations. One was on the boardwalk aesthetics, and so specifically we were asking residents what about the aesthetic, the material that they preferred based on some choices that we gave them working with your staff. And I'll go into some more detail about each of these. The second station in the charrette was around access and amenities for day boaters and hand-powered watercraft. So we were asking about whether access to docks for day boaters is important, if it was important to preserve beach access for kayakers and paddle boaters, and also getting a sense of the importance of different amenities for day boaters. The third station was around boardwalk extension and commercial activities, asking questions around the importance of widening the boardwalk, continuing commercial activities, and then asking some preference around the kiosks that are located there. The fourth station was around the mooring field, creating a mooring field, and asking participants about their interest in an organized mooring field and any recommendations that they had. So those were the 4 broad categories that we were interested in learning about. The way the charrette was set up is we invited everyone to come in. They had an orientation flyer which gave them information about the purpose and goals of the charrette, some background on each of these 4 areas. They sat down, Mayor Harker introduced the session and talked a little bit more about the purpose and why we were doing this and what we were hoping to gain from the participation of residents. And then we gave them, Fountain Works team gave them an orientation about the process, and then we had them move into 4 stations that we called around the room. Each station had 1 to 2 hosts, facilitators who were guiding them along. So while they were answering questions, we were also interested in understanding the whys behind what they liked or didn't like, or what was interesting or important to them. And we were capturing all of this. We're using some dot voting and sticky notes to capture all of this information. We also had some space in the charrette where if there were other issues of importance people wanted to talk to us about, we also had some space for them to share those perspectives. So the sessions were held for up to 2 hours, and it enabled people that weren't able to come to the beginning to come in at some point during the session and visit all 4 stations. So that allowed us, I think, to have really good participation overall. So what I'd like to do is I'll go into each of the different stations and just give you a high-level view of what we learned. So we'll go to the first station here, and this one was around their preference around 4 different materials. We were interested in understanding the 4 choices were around what we called a plastic composite, premium hardwood, also looking at concrete and pressure treated wood. So there were 4 options. They had photos of each of these different options, and we're asking them, what were their first and second choices among these four, and then trying to understand why they liked one or two over the others. And so what we ultimately found out was that the plastic composite and the premium hardwood were their top choices overall, with plastic composite being a little bit more preferred overall. Some of the reasons they like these, the aesthetics, the durability of it, some of the concerns they have about the other choices were the durability, the look of them, and our focus on this was really around the aesthetic. They didn't have information about what the life cycle cost of these different materials were. There were some other things that go into factoring a decision, but we're really trying to understand what's the preferred look that you'd like to see. So those were the top two choices, and it was consistent in both the charrette and in the survey findings. So we'll go to the second station, and the second station, we're interested in learning about day boater access. So very strong support for day boater access. Very few people said it was not important. They were also very interested in preserving the existing beach access at Pollock Street for paddleboards, kayaks, other hand-powered watercraft. Really strong agreement, strong support for these. And then what I'll do is I'll go through some of the other questions that we asked in this station were about different amenities that they felt were important to day boaters. And what we did is we did a forced ranking process with them. So we gave them 5 amenities to choose from, to rank. One was drinks and snacks as an amenity for day boaters. One was fuel, one was ice, one was restrooms, one was valet, someone who could help them park their boats if they needed. And we asked them to rank these from 1 being most important to have, 5 being least important to have. And so the idea here is these may all be important to them, but this force rank helped us understand which of these things would rise to the top if you had could only choose, or if you had to make a decision between them. So the results are up on the screen here. You can see that restrooms overall were the top choice for an amenity for day boaters, and fuel was second. So those two came up on top, and then you can see the order of ranking from valet, drinks and snacks, and ice. And so again, these could all be important to them, but they had to rank them. So keep that in mind as you evaluate these, but it does give you some sense of which were the ones that rose to the top. So I think we have maybe another, I think that's the only slide that we have. The report that we prepared also has some more information and breakdown of this information. But again, just to give you a sense on that question around amenities. So if we go to the next station that we had here, this was one of the questions here was around how important was it to continue commercial activities such as parasailing and boat tours. So there was overwhelming consensus for continuing commercial activities, felt that was important, wanted to see that. We also asked a question about their feeling about having diverse kiosk designs on the boardwalk. And so we shared photos of current kiosks that were currently on the boardwalk so that they had a visual to take a look at. And the feeling about the kiosk design was mixed. There were some residents who wanted to have a more uniform look, and we gave them a photo example of what uniform kiosk would look like. There were some residents who did not want to see they wanted to see a diverse kiosk design on the boardwalk. And of those who wanted to keep a diversity of the look and the aesthetic, there was some interest in still having some cohesive look among those kiosks. So, and then there were others who were just unsure. So it seemed that people didn't necessarily overwhelmingly want to see the same design overall, but there was certainly an interest in having some cohesion among those different designs. So that one was mixed. We also asked them about widening the boardwalk, and this was one where there was also not a consensus. Those who wanted to see the boardwalk widened felt that it was highly congested. They wanted to see more room for foot traffic, more room would enable them to have sitting and places to sit in that area. They saw the economic benefit of widening it because they saw that it would bring more people. It would be an economic development generator. Of those who believe the boardwalk should not be widened, there are concerns about what this might mean for overall congestion and traffic to the boardwalk area. What might it do to our small town charm if it becomes more developed down there? A significant number of people were just unsure, and so didn't feel that they had enough information at that point to make a decision. So this one was more mixed, not a consensus around it. Some had questions about if you were to widen it, what would that do? Would that have an impact on parking? Bringing boardwalk into the water, what would that do? So there were questions about, what would the impact be? And so for those reasons, people were either unsure or potentially wouldn't support it. I'll continue on with the fourth station. And this one was around establishing a mooring field. Fairly strong support for establishing a mooring field. About 20% who were unsure. Some of the participants didn't know whether or not there was a mooring field currently. And there were also a number of recommendations or feelings expressed about why it was important, as well as some of the concerns that people had. People do have concerns about boat traffic, safety, environmental concerns, preventing congestion in the area. And so overall, support of mooring fields and some suggestions around how to make sure they're managed well. I'm going to go to the final overall takeaways. There is a theme. Any development that's done, there's a tension around between development and maintaining small town charm. That came out with some in either side of that. People are very interested in continuing to have information from the town, information about how decisions are being made. So that was something that people wanted to make sure. They said that's important to us. People want to make sure that the environment is protected. So whatever decisions are made, it's important to make sure you're keeping in mind ecological impacts, environmental impacts to whatever that you do. There was also a lot of appreciation for the town just engaging in this process. They appreciated being able to participate, have their voice heard, be involved. So really a lot of really positive feedback about the process, about the town's engagement of the community. A couple of other points of feedback. Really interested in understanding, again, how the decision-making process will flow. Interest and concern, who might be potentially, if the town is not managing this, who might be the managing organization involved. That's a question, a concern, and people wanted to express that. And then the other piece of feedback is just overall just the general concern around parking and wanting to make sure that that stays on everyone's top of mind as in whatever decisions are made. So in conclusion, I'd be happy to take any questions that you have or be available as you have discussion among yourselves. So again, I want to just say thank you for allowing us to be part of this and part of this effort, and incredibly appreciative of the staff who helped support this, the fire department and the staff involved in helping to design this. So thank you, and I'll be happy to share or answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Warren. Can you hear us on our side? Can you hear us well?
Yes.
All right. We'll start with some of the commissioners and see if they have questions for you. Commissioner Lopiccolo?
Yeah, Lauren, thanks so much for participating in this and working with the town. I actually wanted to just make a comment, and maybe Mayor Harker can kind of add in on this. I just wanted to, for full transparency of this, we just wanted to make sure that the town understood why this was done and how this all came about, because I know we had some emails and some concerns that, why was this, what was going on. People were confused in some ways about how it was put together and all. And obviously we didn't want to disregard the work that the Harbor and Waterways Committee did in years past. So, Mayor Harker, would you mind presenting
Answering that?
Yeah.
Well, when we started off with the presentation, it was the purpose of it, as this board had designed, was to get the feedback of the community as to the future of the boardwalk or the harbor. Now, this was also born from the work of the Harbor and Waterways Committee, so none of their work was ever dismissed by any means. It was just expanded on. So just for a recollection, the board received information from the Harbor and Waterways Committee. Some of the board members may not have been here, but that work is also still online. They have presented us with three different scenarios, a couple of different scenarios. And we have to be able to whittle down from that scenario what we can actually do and afford and what's really important out of that. So that was always a decision that this board would have to come to at some point as to the work that was presented to us. What could we do? What was it going to look like? And that's where we were. So this was a stepping point towards that. I don't think we're done with any conversation. It's a big decision that needs to be made. But this board needed to understand what was important to the citizens based out of that committee work so that you can make those decisions moving forward. And that's what the opening was all about. It was helping them, and of course we used a facilitator and took us out of the process so that we can have our citizens have the autonomy to speak freely. And I know that they wanted to ask those questions, and that's why the facilitators were there, so that they can stay on task. And we know that all these questions are coming to a point, and we have those questions too. And we're working out this process, and we need to do it in a way that is logical and definitely will bring the citizens along when we have the information.
Great, thank you. And then finally, and I don't want to be the person asking all the questions here. I know some of these answers, but I just want to have that open, this transparency for this whole process. Todd, could you speak to how the trip was put together and how that was, how the collaboration was made for the questions and so forth for this?
Sure. So, excuse me. So we reached out to Fountain Works because they did such a great job working with the Board of Commissioners with our annual retreat back in, I believe it was January. And so when we started talking internally about, okay, what are the things that we want to identify that came out of the Harbor and Waterways Master Planning Advisory Committee recommendations to the board, what were the things that were more granular in terms of what we want to determine are important to the development and reinvestment with these docks, instead of trying to come up with a design and then go to the board or to the public and say, well, is this what you're willing to support? We really wanted to see what the public wanted instead, and we wanted to get that process straight from that aspect. So that's where we came back as some staff meeting with Warren and the mayor to develop those questions, and that's how we arrived at the SHREP and how it was assembled.
Thank you. I just think that's important to have that out and everybody understand that.
Okay.
I want to ask a question about numbers. We have about, I think, 275 people involved, both online and in person. Is that a fair, group of people, or a large group of people, based on the size of the town of 4,500? And do we know, were there multiple people? Could there have been multiple people either giving opinions online and in person, or did we track that, or could there have been people who are out of town or in ETJ? Was it just basically anyone who came in was part of the charrette, or do we verify if people were from the town itself?
Well, I don't know if there's a way of tracking that, but being present at both of them, I recognize the majority of the faces were people that lived in town. So just by eyeballing the crowd that was there, but I don't think you've tracked where they lived at. And there have been times when we have had opportunities, even with the Harbor and Waterways Committee, although the members were all locals, we've had people that have come from out of areas that wanted to have their input. So just like I said, based on what I've seen through both charrettes, I recognize the moral majority of the people from being in town.
Okay. And do you feel like that there were certain issues that were really pressing with people that were there that weren't addressed, or that were maybe questions that were being asked of you that we didn't ask, or do you feel like those 4 topics were pretty broad enough to cover all the items that we were interested in, or that the town staff and committee, the town committee who made up the questions were addressing? Can you hear me?
Is that's a question for me?
For you, yeah.
Yeah, you know, we had space for people to raise other issues or concerns. So we said these are the 4 areas that we're going to be working on. We want to get your input, but we also knew that there may be other things that that people might bring or want to talk about. And so we mentioned those at the end of the slides there. I mean, traffic, just overall traffic is something that was important to people. They want to make sure that that's something the town is thinking about, overall interested in who and how is this, who and how will it be managed? That's a question that people were interested in. And so we wanted to capture that. I mean, I think those were really the 2 big issues that we heard from that weren't directly part of the 4 focus areas. And so we captured that, and that was part of of what we wanted to make sure you were aware of. Those would be the 2 things.
And what would you say were the 2 most kind of the highest consensus issues that were raised by questions for the town? Were they? I think you had mentioned
across everything we asked for.
Yeah.
Sure. I think access. I'm going to just quickly go back. Give me one moment. I would say of what we asked, I would say day boater access to docks, access for beach access for paddle boards, kayaks, hand-powered watercraft. That was very strong. I think among the amenities, restrooms certainly is something that that came out across the table as among those choices there. And I think the 4th is continued commercial activities such as parasailing and boat tours. I think those, among all the different questions, were the absolute strongest feelings among everything we asked.
Okay, well, thank you. And I also just want to say to the town, thank you all for coming out and putting your time and energy and effort into this. It really does matter. Every voice does matter. And we have read every comment that was made and posted on Post-it notes and so forth. So we are aware or I am aware of all the comments that were out there. So thank you. Thanks for doing that.
Thank you. Commissioner Gilligan?
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
Thanks.
So I know that one of the recommendations in the Harbor and Waterway report was to extend the boardwalk to the east, but the question that was asked at the charrette was widening the boardwalk. I guess I hadn't heard that one before, and was wondering, and I guess this would be a question for Todd, where that came from, that idea came from.
Right. The question was really intended to be for the East Basin, where the sidewalk is at, where I doubt that it's 5 feet wide right now and meets ADA accessibility requirements. So there was some interest in knowing whether or not the citizens would have a particular interest in widening that section of the waterfront. But I also think it was construed to understand that maybe the rest of the waterfront, the existing boardwalk, if that should be widened as well. So it was really the entire length from Pollock Street all the way down to Turner, really at that portion of the waterfront. But the intent of the question was truly for that portion between Queen and Pollock.
Okay. I kind of thought that was what y'all were trying to get at, but wasn't quite sure. I wanted to understand that a little bit more. Otherwise, I think the report is pretty self-explanatory. I appreciate your presentation, and everything is pretty clear the way you presented it, so thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cooper?
Yeah, thank you. Great presentation. A lot of information that were presented to us. I don't have any questions for you per se. Just some things that I feel I need to ask for the board later on. But again, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Oliver?
I would just add to Commissioner Piccolo's comments that every comment, you did a very good job, in my opinion, Warren, of not missing anything. So your attention to detail and completeness of the listing, although although for your work it was painfully long, I too read everyone and found some good advice throughout your report. So I compliment you on the detail of your report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Spiegler?
I want to second Commissioner Oliver. Warren, I think y'all did a really great job with the report. I know there was a lot of information to sift through. There was an excellent turnout, I thought, and even the survey, for only being open for less than a week, great turnout. So, I mean, it's just really great to see our community so engaged and really care about the waterfront. So I just want to say thank y'all again for the great work you've done. And this report, it was very easy to read it. I read every comment. So I just want to say thank y'all for the great job that you did on this. So I did want to kind of second what you said. You did a good job of pulling out the themes. So, when you said a major theme that came out was balancing development with small town charm. I mean, I think that was a really clear from reading all the comments, and then also that day boater access to the docks, very important. Preserving the Pollock Street beach access, very important. Commercial activity. And I think, what is really great about this report is following the charrettes. I know we've had numerous people reach out to the commissioners, whether it's through email or phone calls or even just community conversations. And what y'all put in the report is really tracking, I think, with what we've been hearing since the charrettes. People are really concerned that we redevelop the docks and the downtown waterfront in an environmentally friendly way. We need to think about current and future concerns, including climate change, including the impacts to our water quality, not expanding our footprint. And that came out really clearly reading through all of the comments in the report. And also, we've heard, the commissioners since the charrettes have heard from many people about the concerns and the impacts from a large corporation and how that would impact our small town character. And that really came out through the report too. And so I just think that, we're hearing from the community how important this is, and I personally understand that because I worked down on the docks and on the waterfront for small commercial businesses for 10 years in Beaufort. So I know how important this is, and I just think now the commissioners and the staff, we have a responsibility to take what we're reading in your report, what we're hearing from our citizens, and really incorporate this feedback into the process and decision-making going forward, as Mayor Harker told us. So I just really appreciate all the work that you've helped us do and all the feedback that we've received from these charrettes. So thank you.
Any follow-up questions? Do you have any for Warren? All right. Well, Warren, I think we are through drilling you. You and Rachel did a great job as always. Pulling this together was not a small feat. I've seen the duck version of it as you are working hard underwater but smooth on top. And it shows that the interest that our community has with people coming out with the online surveys has just been amazing, and it really was heartwarming to see. But this is a beginning conversation, so our community, I want them to understand that this is the beginning process and how important it was. And you were great in facilitating this information and providing us the feedback. So I'm not quite sure exactly where you are, but I just want to thank you for zooming in and presenting this information to us. Unless anybody has any further questions, we can say goodbye to Warren and Rachel. Say bye. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
All righty. Does anybody else have any further questions before we move on to the FY25 budget? All right, Todd, you're up next.
All right, Mayor and Board, I'm going to just pass down a recap of where we left off last week. Got one more for you back here. There you go.
Is that
Are
enough
there
for you
enough
guys?
copies there? Am I short? Everybody's got a copy?
Okay, I need one.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So Mayor and Board, last week we went through water and sewer budget, and we did a quick recap on general fund, and there were some things that the board did make some changes to, so I just want to quickly go through those with you, and what you have in front of you is a synopsis of those changes. With respect to the general fund, we increased investment earnings by $200,000. And you will note that under the expenditures, 10-800-8000, we increased transfer to capital reserve by the equivalent same amount of money, $200,000. And then I have recorded here under expenditures changes that the board made at the first work session. That is a reduction in general adjustments, 10-700-0200 from 20,000. Excuse me, we increased it from 20,000 to $60,000 for a change of $40,000, and we took that money out of a different line item as the 700-5600 contribution to other agencies. We reduced that from $320,100 to $280,100, so that's your $40,000 reduction. On the water and sewer department, we reduced contingencies in both the water and the sewer departments. Both those line items are 5730 respectively, and we changed those. We reduced each of those $43,500, and the net result of that was $87,000, and that was transferred to capital outlay equipment for a couple of projects that Donovan has. So that constitutes the changes that have been made to the proposed budget thus far. We did, after going through the water and sewer budget, we moved to the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, and Greg went through a recommendation to the board concerning residential and non-residential fees and how those were structured, along with a stormwater policy and a credit manual that accompanied that. Went through quite an extensive discussion on that, but the board did not make any decisions. And so Mayor, Board, we're prepared to pick up the conversation there. And we also need to finish up with just a review of fees and charges with recommendations there and any changes that you might like to make. So Mayor, we're at Stormwater Enterprise.
Okay. Well, we'll go around and see if anybody has any comments, and we can come to a final conclusion to direct the staff where we want to go with those fees. Commissioner Lil Piccolo, we'll start with you.
So I tried to do a little research on stormwater enterprise fees and looking around the state, and I didn't, I tried to see what we had in place, and a lot of it was fairly similar, but what I did see is that our base fee is tremendously higher than most other cities in the area, which I could understand. We're a coastal community and maybe we're trying to play catch up. But I didn't see, the multipliers in place in most other cities. It just seemed that the multiplier itself, it seemed to be quite a bit more, and it almost to me seemed to be like we're punishing the non-residential with those multipliers. So I had a hard time, and I just, like I said, kind of just moving through these cities, it didn't sit well with me. The other thing I also had a hard time with, and I know that we had talked about this briefly, was the ERUs and the formula that we use, where it seemed like most cities had around 2,400, 2,500 square feet as their amount that they used. And by doing that, by having that higher amount for an ERU, you then also penalizing the businesses even more by doing the math to basically divide, say, like a 50,000 square foot building or something by that ERU, and then coming up with a number that then becomes the amount that you're using in this formula for your fees. So I felt like a lot of what we had in here was really punishing businesses. And I know we've left off, the streets in town as impervious structures, but I think we could do better with the chart and with the multipliers, or coming up with a better system. And that's, I think, something we need to work on. I'm just not ready to adopt this in its current form. My thoughts.
So Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, please.
If it pleases the board, I think John may have summarized, and I'm taking the liberty of saying this, may have summarized some of your mutual thoughts on this. Greg has gone back and come up with a couple of other scenarios for comparison, if you would like to see that this time.
Okay. Let's see if everybody has
Yeah,
questions.
I think we should all give our comments first.
Yes. Thanks. So are you through with yours before we move on? Okay.
Yeah, I'm through.
Okay. Commissioner Gilligan?
I am not ready to pass or adopt the credit fee manual today. Probably a little bit, a few different reasons than Commissioner Piccolo. I think it's really awesome in many parts of it, or the vast majority of it, and where it could be perceived as businesses being punished, I think we're finally catching up with accountability on proportion of the land that's developed in impervious surfaces. So I do think that they should be paying more. So I'm ready to move forward on a fee discussion, but not adopting the manual today. I'm looking forward to seeing some of those additional scenarios that Greg came up with. So thanks for that, Todd, letting us know about that. So I would say adopt that in the new fiscal year. I wonder, what would it look like to not increase the residential fee this year and go ahead and implement the low income credit application so that they will not have an increase in the upcoming year? Just do that ahead of time? And for non-residential, could we consider double, tripling, or quadrupling what they're currently paying in year one? Although I would like to understand, for some of the smallest businesses, say we quadrupled it in year one for non-residential, and that would be like around $200 or something, I think. Right? Ish.
I think Greg's captured that in his presentation, so I think you'll see some of that.
Oh, okay. Okay. But Greg's not here today, though, right?
Greg's
He's right
here.
here.
He's
Yes,
right.
he is.
All I could see was Kyle. I was like, you kept looking back there because hey, Greg.
He's hiding behind Kyle.
Okay, so maybe I'll just hold any further comments on that until Greg speaks. But I would like to understand, if we did just pick a number today for non-residential, how it would compare to what they would pay with the credit manual. I know we made an example of Food Lion, but I'm thinking like the tiniest business in town. What if we decided today, let's just quadruple it for the first year? How would that compare to what would come out of the credit manual? I don't want to be too far off on that. And then at a later date, I want to talk about establishing some kind of us getting some big grant funds to help offset costs for non-residential and stormwater retrofits and upgrades and those type of things. I know that that's not a conversation we want to have today, but just as a reminder, I want to talk about it in the future.
Thank you. Commissioner Cooper?
Thank you. My still major concern is rolling this out and blindsiding the community. And I agree with Commissioner Paul over here about terms of the rollout and the credit for the non-residentials. I said, a $2 increase may seem small to some of us, but there's still a majority of people out there that $2 may mean them deciding to pay our credit, to pay our fee versus medication, getting their meds from CVS or wherever. $2 is not, for some people that's not life, it's not, it could be life, but anyway, I just sympathetic towards those that have to pay an additional fee. But I would also really like for us to roll out some information to the town.
Mm-hmm. Sure. All right, Commissioner Oliver?
I agree with the comments subject to Greg's further alternatives as far as going away from what we have today, which is a per parcel $4 fee. I would be open when he makes some of his suggestions to also considering changing it from $4 to $6 with a low income credit so that people who have that problem would not see an increase. And I very much agree that the gap that we're seeing between those proposed revenues and what we're going to see in stormwater needs to be a heavy emphasis on grants.
Commissioner Spiegler?
I want to say thank you to Greg for his presentation. I think it was last week about this. So as we're considering how to pay back our loans for the USDA loan for our streets, this is part of what we have to consider is what do we set our stormwater rates at? So that's why we're talking about this right now. So we do need to pay back our loan to the USDA, and I think it's important too that we live in a coastal community and we don't have the same conditions that we did 5, 10, 20 years ago. We do have a lot of stormwater challenges here, and that's part of living at the coast. And our stormwater challenges are getting more challenging because we have higher water levels, we have increased rainfall, more intense storms. So this is something that it's not going to go away. This is going to continue to be a challenge, even more so as we get more people moving to our community. So, it is something that we have to think about maybe even more so than an inland community. And so, this is why we are having to really think about our stormwater infrastructure and what we do with all of the water here, and it impacts our water quality, which impacts our tourism and our quality of life. So I think that last week Greg did present, I thought, a pretty fair compromise, increasing the residential rates from $4 a month to $6 a month with a $3 credit for low-income populations. He also explained that the non-residential properties, we could charge them based on their impervious surface, but when he showed us the calculations, those rates were quite high, and they included, possibly $5,000 a year for a place the size of the Food Lion parking lot. And so that did seem, somewhat excessive to just drop that on a business. So he had the compromise that we could lower that rate and charge non-residential properties something still more than what they're paying now, but not the actual rate that they're using. And I thought that was a pretty fair compromise. And something I would be willing to consider. I think what concerns me, and I've sort of heard this appear today, this is not something that we can just spring on the community, whether it's residential or non-residential. I don't think it would be wise of us to, a week or a couple weeks or even a month ahead of time say, hey, your rates are being raised. I think we need to be really thoughtful about the way we implement this. So I liked the suggestion, if this is possible, to wait and increase until next year, because that would give low-income populations a year or however long they need to apply for that credit. Otherwise, like Commissioner Cooper said, that is $2 a month. That is a lot of money, and some people are not going to be able to afford that. So I'd really like to give our residents time to apply for that credit. So if that means delaying it, so we can get the word out, I think that's a good thing. And I also agree for businesses, I don't think it's right to spring this on them either. I think there has to be a really thoughtful rollout of this program and, why our rates are increasing. I don't think that's something we should do in just a few weeks either. I think we need to have really good education, awareness. This is why we're doing this. Give people and businesses and residents time to prepare for this increase. I do think it needs to happen, but, not at the last minute and not as here it is and you have to pay it next month. I don't think that is good for anyone. And so I don't know what the solution is per se, but I do want to make sure that our outreach is really, and education is really intentional and thoughtful. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was well said. Let's move on to Greg's presentation, and we'll probably have some answers to some of the questions and maybe generate more questions.
Chrissy, our first debt service payments would be in FY25 for USDA. So timing is important here because we have to have sufficient revenue to make and pay for expenditures that are related to the program. So I want to make sure that we capture that as part of the conversation with the board.
Try to cover that.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
So you saw this slide last time, and what was driving the rate structure that was presented last time was a revenue goal of $271,000. That was a goal. When it comes to the USDA payment, that's less than $100,000. So what was done was we set up a desired amount that is based upon being able to finance another CIP project, a CIP project for which we have an estimate in our CIP stormwater plan over a period, I assumed, again, I think I told you last time, 20 years, roughly 4 or 5%. And so I added all that up, the USDA payback, the annual payment for another CIP project, and $80,000 for operations, whether that be to hire another individual or to do contract services. to cover that. And so we came up with $271,000. And from that, I carried you through the process. Commissioner Spiegler mentioned that I tried to balance between the customer base of residential versus commercial, non-residential, and the amount of impervious of residential versus non-residential. And you will recall that what I said was that the customer base of commercial is about 8% relative to to residential. And then when it comes to impervious, there's about 2 times more non-residential impervious out there than there is residential. So that was the balancing act there that drove that rate structure. So, and you saw this last time, with that tier fee schedule, we ended up with a projected revenue with credits assumed, roughly 25% of the customer base receiving a 10% credit, with a projected revenue of about $275,000, which exceeds just barely the goal. And then if you had no credits, the number of course went up to $289,000. So back to the ERU. When it comes to the ERU, yes, there was an ERU established long before I got here. It was supposedly based upon research looking at aerial photography of residential units and averaging out across our residential community how much impervious surface exists on residential lots, again on an average basis. I agree, it seems low, but the research was done. I wasn't here to check it, but it was done. And then from that, a fee was developed of $4 per ERU. So the way that normally works is equivalent residential unit, each house, single family home, they are assumed to have that average amount of impervious on their lot. So they have 1 ERU on their house, has 1 ERU on it. So they get charged $4 a month because they have 1 ERU. The way it typically works for an ERU-based fee schedule is that non-residential is charged based upon the number of ERUs that exist on their property. So to make this easy, if a residential property had 17,080 square feet, they would be charged 10 ERUs, so their bill per year would be $40. So again, you take the 1780 and you divide it into the amount of square footage on their property, you come up with the number of ERUs to the nearest whole number, and then you multiply it by 4. And the one thing that I want you to see there, based upon what you're saying, what I'm hearing, is that under that scenario, we're generating, we think, about $135,000 a year, which is more than the USDA payback. Now, one thing I will tell you is we're charging it more or less like a tax. It's not a tax. It's a utility fee because we put it on the tax bill. And we're paying a 2% fee to the county to collect that tax. I'm not used to it being done that way. I'm used to it appearing on the utility bill on a monthly basis. So, but that's what I'm used to. So if we were to institute a true ERU-based fee schedule, and we indeed charged non-residential properties for the amount of actual impervious on their site, I'm projecting, and kept the ERU fee at $4 per ERU, we would generate over that 271,000 a year goal. Over and above that, we generate 104,000 with no assumption of credits. If you assume, again, go back to my credit assumption of 25% of the customer base receives credits, and on average they receive 10%, then the overage would be $95,000. So that's one alternative. This is what, and we did this last time, I didn't show it, or maybe I did, but this is what some of your businesses would be paying under that scenario. And you'll see a summary table of this at the end, where I compare these things. So another way to go is a single flat fee to generate that $271,000 a year of income. And if you assume no credits and we go where everybody is charged the same thing, non-residential and residential, again, based on what Commissioner Oliver says, essentially a bi-parcel, a single fee, $8 a month would match that $271,000. It would generate, by my estimate, $271,000. You would have to go to $8.50 per month if you go with my assumptions for 25% of the customer base receiving credit and that average credit being 10%. So that's a second alternative. Third alternative is two flat fees. Back to the thing where we have twice the impervious amount on commercial. So under that scenario, using that as a guide, what I basically did was say, okay, we got twice the commercial impervious out there, so let's do a 2 times rate. You know, the residential has the base fee, and we charge non-residential at 2 times the residential fee. And so what you come up with is what I calculate is a fee to, again, hit that $271,000, $8 per month and $16 per month. That means a residential property would be paying $96 per year versus the $48 per year they're paying right now. And the non-residential would be paying $192 per month versus the $48 per year they're paying. Third option. And you see, with no credits, it generates roughly $22,000 or $23,000 more than the goal of the $271,000, and with the credit assumption, $15,500 more. And it's interesting to note that under this scenario, because our non-residential customer base is so small, that it only generates $22,800 more per year than just going with a single flat fee of $8, of $8. Fourth. So here are your options, all side by side. That's so you can see the comparison of what, and if you go across this, you know, under the single flat fee of $850 a month to account for credits, a single family residence would be paying $102 under the single flat fee. Under the 2 flat fees, $96 a year. With the ERU-based fees of, you know, again, $4 a month for residential, that's $48 a year, what they're paying now. And then if you go with the tiered fees that we talked about last time, they would be $72. And so I'm not going to go through these individually, but, you know, jump down to, you know, say your last 3. You can see that the big difference for non-residential is if you go with the ERU-based fee system. Whereas if you look at the other ones, the tiered fees are going to be a little more costly to non-residential. While the single flat fee or the double flat fee is going to be less impact to them. So that's the summary.
All right, let's see if anybody has any questions for you, Greg. Commissioner LaPiccolo?
Not yet.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Gilligan?
No questions.
Commissioner Cooper?
Great, thanks for your presentation, yeah. Okay. Well, we'll stop. Roll right on. ERU and impervious. I don't know a thing about them. I'm sitting up there in somebody's church and they go, well, what are you talking about an ERU or impervious? Break that down for me.
Again, an ERU is meant to describe the amount of impervious, that being roof area, driveways, sidewalks, anything that rainwater won't percolate through. It is intended to describe on an average basis how much exists on single family or on residential properties. I'm sorry, residential properties.
Don't. I could see someone on there say, why I'm paying for that? This is my property, this is my house. Mother Nature is providing the rain, and so why am I, having to pay a fee for that?
Because water runs off of their property and it goes into ditches, swells, things like that we maintain, our stormwater infrastructure. Let's see, I rolled in today and I already had 2 phone calls over stormwater problems that people wanted us to come fix now. That costs money to go clean ditches, take care of storm drains, clean out pipes, upsize things that are inadequate. And anytime it rains, either I or both of us, I or Marquise or both of us get phone calls. We have issues in this town and they've not been addressed. We do the best we can, but we need to start establishing some funds to improve what I call the backbone of this stormwater collection system.
I agree with you on that, Steve, but it's almost looking like also I received my cable bill. Mm-hmm. And it had all kinds of fees inserted on this cable bill. Mm-hmm. And that's about what I feel here, that this is a fee here that as a town, as an owner of property or whatever, I have to pay because I really don't have, I have no control of Mother Nature. If she decides for it to rain, snow, whatever, I don't have no control of her or that. But I'm going to be penalized for it in any event because the town is needing to be able to have funds to clean out the stormwater drains and the dishes. I mean, that's the prospect that I'm looking at in the eyes of constituents out there is just that. So my credit, how am I gonna get my credit?
Well, in the credit manual, there are any number of ways to get a credit and any number of percentages associated with a different type of things you can do. You can install a rain barrel, get 10% credit on your bill. You can install up to 4 of them and get 40%. You can revegetate an area in your yard, mulch it, turn it into a revegetated area and get credit for that. You can construct a rain garden. You can do, I can't remember everything in the manual, but there are any number of things that a typical homeowner could do to achieve a credit. Now, some of them aren't cheap, particularly like a green roof, but some of them are not too terribly expensive to do. For instance, I've got a small rain garden in my own yard, and it fills up with water every time it rains. And I have a birdhouse in the middle of it, so. But it's an attractive feature.
What type of barrel are we also talking about? I know thing, but what type of barrel? Once again, I'm addressing questions that could be asked of me by people who wants to know.
Yeah, I think in the stormwater manual, it basically talks about capturing a half an inch of runoff from your roof, something like that. So typically a 55-gallon drum or a little more does the trick for a portion of your roof.
A regular 55-gallon drum, oil drum,
typically,
or plastic drum?
Typically a plastic drum. Yeah.
That I'm putting in my yard, and if I got 4 of them, I got 4 of these things around my property.
Yeah. You put it at the corner. You put it at the corner of your house where your leader comes down, and if you want to go an extra mile, then what you could do is the overflow you could direct to a rain garden. Then you get 2 credits.
Look at you, getting credits. Already.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Oliver?
My least favorite discussion, and one that I do not think we're prepared for today, is the ERU-based fees, column 3 in your deal. I think we also have to recognize that there are some pressures of time, and I still go back that I think we are, for this decision at this date, I think we should go from $4 to $6 per parcel per month. We should initiate the $3 credit, which I've read it, it works, I've seen it, I've done it. And we should also fill the gap up in your budget for this year with anticipated grants and go after that. So that's where my heart is today.
Okay. Commissioner Spiegler?
Greg, I just want to say thank you. This is actually really useful to see this table laid out like this. It really kind of puts the options in our head, so I really appreciate that. I think Commissioner Cooper has made a good point. This is what I'm saying. We need to be really intentional and thoughtful about this, because while some of his questions may have sounded silly, I mean, those are the questions that y'all are going to start getting phone calls about. The town staff, the commissioners, why are we doing this? What is this for? We have no control over Mother Nature. But the important part for the town of Beaufort is we have flooding issues. So we can say stormwater, but what we're really talking about, what's important to people, is flooding. I have flooding in my neighborhood all the time. I have residents in my neighborhood who call you and say, please come clean out our ditches. And
just within the past 2 days.
In the past 2 days. And we are out there digging our ditches ourselves, which I don't think is a very smart idea, because we're not in great shape and it's not good for us sometimes. So, this is a real issue that we are dealing with as a community, and flooding is a huge issue here, and it's going to become, you're not going to be here forever to manage it, but, our town's going to have to manage it. So, it ties back to, how do we travel safely on our roads? How do we get our kids to school? How do we get to work? How do we get to the grocery store? How do we get to the doctor? So this is, it's not going away. A lot of times, I don't know if y'all have heard this, but when we think about stormwater, I've heard the 3 S's, right? Soak it up, spread it out, slow it down. How do we soak up the water? How do we spread out the water? How do we slow down the water? And this is just the reality for us living here in a coastal community. We have to address this. I think this really kind of gives us an idea of of how to think this through. And I think that's all I've got right now. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Ticcolo, you have a follow-up question?
I do have a couple questions. Is there no other way of funding the stormwater fund besides just grants? Is there any other supplementation the town can do from, say, if the town has surplus or anything like that? Say we fell short, how would the town manage a shortfall in that fund?
I think you have to look at it as a long-term commitment to an enterprise fund, just like water and sewer fund. And I would also remind you that we had a broken stormwater system here. That's what's driving this today, this conversation. And the local government commission has said, if you're going to take the USDA loan, you're going to create a stormwater enterprise fee and a fund. So there's no option.
Right,
there.
I'm not saying not to have it, but is there any other supplementation to that? Say that we weren't able to collect the total amount. Right now, the amount we have to collect total is $96,000, right?
That is the basic. That's correct. There are other associated fees that go into maintaining the program. That's personnel fees. There's the street sweeper fees are applicable under our stormwater permit. So there are a whole host of maintenance and operational fees that are associated with that. Now, you can make a decision as a board whether or not you want to fund that portion of the cost. If you don't, we've still got that expenditure, and that's going to be absorbed by your general fund. So from a business perspective, it's not logical that you continue to fund stormwater expenditures when you are creating stormwater enterprise fund, and that's the intention. It's supposed to be a business type operation with revenues funding those expenditures.
And our expenditures are estimated at $275,000 a year.
That's correct.
So that's what we've got to find.
Yes, sir. So with that said, just like your water and sewer fund, it has to be self-sustaining with revenues derived from the sale of water to support that. And this fund has to be supported by revenue derived from stormwater fees. You can't supplement those expenditures with revenues from the general fund or the water and sewer fund. You'd be making a transfer of funds, which is not, I mean, you're defeating the purpose of setting up the fund, which the general or the local government commission has said you must set up. The fees have to be reasonable and just, but you can't supplant funds from another part of your budget.
You know, I was just considering easing the town into it so that it wasn't just a big shock all at once.
Right.
So,
I would suggest at the very
town,
minimum meeting the requirements for your debt obligation.
Okay.
I don't totally agree with that as your manager, but that's a first step if that's what you want to do.
Well, and frankly, we meet that today because $4 raises $140,000.
In your general fund.
Yeah, but we can move that. That's what you're saying is the fallback routine is to move that to that, and that's the 140. If we possibly went to $6, it would be $210,000, and we'd have a $60,000, and we got to find a $100,000 grant out there to close the gap this year.
But please understand, you still have other operational expenses that are absorbed in the general fund, and that's not a good practice.
I understand, but just $275,000 is our current goal to raise.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And I have one other question, and this is opening up a whole other can of worms, but single-family residences. In our town, we have single-family residences that are zoned differently, and some allow complete lot coverage, right? R20, R8 maybe, right? Allow complete lot coverage. So why aren't we also looking at that? And because apples to oranges, someone who has an R5 or is completely different than some, properties that have almost, and we have these in our town that have almost completely paved or covered their lot with their home.
Again, this is supposedly an average of all of those.
The 1708 is averaging it, but John's got a good point. We could also do it individually, but then we're going to need 6 more staff members to figure it out.
Then you probably have to raise the fee to cover that.
Yeah.
Right.
You need a stormwater manager.
Probably do.
You probably do. Yeah, it's just, for historical purposes, when I came on the board, supplementing an enterprise fund that's supposed to pay for itself wound up getting us into a little bit more of a problem further down the road. So just please keep that in mind, that if you were to ever think about supplementing the difference and the shortfall from the general fund, that's not a good practice, and it winds up putting you in a tougher position later on down the road. Not only you making the decision, but the customer themselves. So I know this is going to be a hard decision for you folks to make, but just a little bit of historical data. It took us a while to dig out of that hole from when I got on this board in 2015. So just a
It's a
little
no-no,
information.
and what it really does is it means you have to raise taxes to do it, which is the
And-
reason that it's not a no-no.
Right.
That it is a no-no, excuse me.
Yeah, so it just creates a little bit more problems further down the line, and I know it's a tough decision. But supplementing it is not the way to go. And, you know, this is a very important topic, and I know you guys want to get it right. Have you shared this with us, Greg? This is brand new,
It's
right, off
brand
the
new.
press?
I think the first 3 slides were old
Okay.
slides.
Maybe the board needs a little bit of time to take a look at this if you guys want to. If you feel like making a decision today, that's totally up to you, but we do have one more session to go through. I know the staff would like for us to come up with a decision. Where does the board stand on where we are with stormwater fees? I think we've kind of, the credit fee manual, you've talked about easing into that if you were to ever think about that. And then the stormwater fees. Go ahead.
No, I really liked the manual, and I want to get there.
Right,
Like,
right.
it's not pie in the sky. I really like the manual. I mean, I really like the work you've done with that, Greg, and I totally get all the theory behind it. I just don't want to dump this on people all at once. So let me just clarify. Obviously we need our loan payment of 96.5. We need operations of around 80,000. What is the prioritized CIP #1 project?
It's called Priority 1, Stormwater Improvements in the CIP Stormwater Manual. There are 3 CIP projects. One is called Priority 1, one is called Priority 2, and one is called Priority 3.
Right, but what actual,
Well,
like, on
what
the
it
ground
involves
work
is, it involves additional evaluation, but beyond that, it involves significant maintenance and replacement of existing infrastructure, pipes, catch basins, drop inlets, stormwater ditches, things like that.
All over town?
It's broken down by basin. I think it's broken into.
So it's a group of miscellaneous high priority funds, needs. Didn't answer your question, but that's what it is.
But if it's a basin project, a basin project would be appropriate for a grant, but we don't want to fill in the gap with the grant, is what I'm hearing. But what if we went the first year
Why not?
and, well, I think it's okay, but we just
So
said
do
we
I.
didn't want to fill in the gap in the enterprise
No,
fund.
no, he doesn't want to fill in the gap from the general fund. He's glad to get grants for this.
If
So-
they're available.
Yeah, if
Right,
they're
I mean,
available.
my recommendation would be at first to try to seek grant funding for the first project, especially since if it's a discrete geographic area basin, I mean, that would align perfectly with some grant opportunities. And then we can try to reach the 176,500 that we have to have for the estimate of operations and the loan payment, which we could do with, okay, maybe I would settle on residential going to 5, and then non-residential going to 10, that would give us 183,300, but that does not include the credits. But the first year, the credits, the application is gonna be for that next year. So I guess maybe the credits would not come out of the 183.
Can I ask a clarifying question? If we do vote on one of these options tonight, when would it get implemented? When would people start to have to pay the new fee?
Well, again, if it is done through assessment, the tax bills go out in August, I think, something like that. If you choose to turn it into something that goes on the utility bill, then the first one would go out in July, and it would be the monthly fee versus the full yearly fee.
It would be similar to your garbage fee.
So theoretically, people might have to start paying a new monthly fee in August of this year.
No, it's the bills go in August, they're due before January.
So right now, the way
But
it's
so-
collected is through, it goes with the tax bill. So it's
Right.
the total yearly amount that's due.
Right.
And, you have until January to pay that.
So we have 2 options as well that we could consider. Are we going to ask people to pay this fee monthly or ask them to pay it yearly? If they start paying it monthly, it would be less money, but it would start sooner. If we're asking them to pay it yearly, it would be more money, but a little bit later.
Yes.
Because I'm just thinking about how much time do we need to inform people of this change? If we were to vote on something tonight, would it give us enough time to let people know?
And just a reminder also, the credits wouldn't be available the first year because we would have to collect that data to be able to.
So no matter what, the
Yes.
credits would
The
never
credit
be.
Could be for the cistern, or that type of credit could be available.
But not the low-income credit.
I can't hear you.
Not the low-income credit.
Correct, yeah, exactly, but the ones for collecting water and using the cistern and doing all that could be, according to the manual today, that could happen.
Well, the manual allows for applications to be submitted from December 15 to February something for the next year's credits. That's the way the manual's set up. Now, that's not to say that because we're rolling out the program, we couldn't receive them.
We could change the date of the manual.
But they have to be verified as well.
Yeah, they have to be verified. So this is where you get into staffing and personnel, and that's why we make the window a short, I won't say short, but a window for all that to occur, so we can concentrate on it and get it out of the way and get all the numbers computed and plugged in for the next fiscal year.
But what about the low income credits? Because those are different than what we're talking about, the manual credits, right?
You know, honestly, I don't remember if I put in a date for those. I can't recall, but.
I don't think you did.
Okay.
I think you had the mitigation methods, but I don't think the low income was specified.
So you're saying we do have the option of either putting it on the utility bill or on the tax bill, right? If we
It's
put
on
on the
the tax
utility
bill
bill,
now.
then we'd save 2% because we won't get the
Yeah.
county taking that amount.
Yeah.
But if we put it on the utility bill, how do you do condominiums and townhomes and so forth that are rental?
Well,
Because they're not paying the utility bill.
A condominium complex is considered non-residential because it's a grouping of homes. Same thing for apartments.
But I'm saying, how would you bill that then? If it's where would that bill come from?
It would typically it would go to the HOA or the management company, one of the two.
Okay.
Question for Todd is, how can, other than our newsletter, what other options do we have in terms of getting this information out?
Well, certainly we have our news outlets, we have our social media pages, all the typical outlets that Rachel taps into. Those are the outlets that we would use.
In the local newspaper? Or something?
Yes, sir.
Well, if you enact it, I'm sure it's going to make the newspaper.
So we already, so there's already a fee, right? I mean, this is not a new fee, it's just,
No, it's not.
it's
It's
determining what
already
the new fee is going to be.
Yeah, this would just be a change in the fee, possibly in the fee structure.
Commissioner Piccolo?
Correct.
And just to follow up for the way that we build this all, Todd, maybe you can speak to this. Say it's not on the tax bill, because on the tax bill, I guess you can foreclose on the property if someone doesn't pay the bill. What if someone doesn't pay the bill? Is it just a separate bill or utility? Since you're saying it could be sent out separately, if that wasn't paid, do we have like something in place for?
So it'd be the same process for residential sanitation recycling charges.
You cut them off.
But for commercial that won't get it as a cutoff, right? They're going to have it sent out separately, you're saying, because it'll go to the HOA.
If it's on the utility bill.
Yeah, typically an apartment complex gets one utility bill. Typically a condominium complex typically gets one bill. Now, there could be some exceptions out there, and we have to find those where individual units are metered individually, but that's not typically the case.
Okay.
So how would this affect the housing authority, just out of curiosity? The housing authority, how would that affect their bottom line? They would get their non-residential.
They would get the non-residential bill.
And would they apply for credits based on the income of the individuals that live there?
We don't have
I
that
think
draft.
they could.
We don't, okay.
Well, I think they could.
I mean, with the statistical data that's provided,
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I haven't thought of that yet. Thank you.
Might want to tweak the manual a little bit based upon that.
Yeah. I mean, because they have historical data that everybody there is low income.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether.
You have churches and Carteret Court, but we don't charge them. The courts we don't charge them. We should be charging the complex. Churches right now, I believe, are exempt from any taxation, so this would be a new bill for them. This would be a new bill for them?
Yes. And that's another reason, if you choose to charge churches, to make it go on the monthly bill, because they don't receive a tax bill. So they don't, the county doesn't bill them.
So just a follow-up question. So if a condominium complex is privately owned, but the residents are low income, you could apply for credits?
I think we need to tweak the manual for that.
Okay.
Doesn't exist today.
Yeah, because I would hate to. In one of my scenarios here, I looked at the double flat fee for the time the time before we implement the manual, and I was thinking residential no more than 5, and then double non-residential. But I don't want to double one unit in a condominium complex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's tricky.
Despite the fact that it might not be common with Greg's practice and so on. One quick question for council. If we collect it through the property tax, does it have the same effect as a lien on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I personally feel that we should stick, no disrespect to Greg's recommendation, that at least for the short term, that we ought to stick with running it through the county and the tax bill. That, among other things, means that we eventually collect it, because it's an effective lien on the property. And secondly, it means that we don't have to worry about people paying it in July, and gives us 6 months of notice before the tax bill comes up. So personally, I think that's my recommendation on that particular facet of this discussion. And I recognize the advantages, I see all that, but I think I like sticking with where we are, and all you have to do is tell the county how much it is as quickly as we can, because they're already pressing you.
I can get on board with that for this year.
Okay.
Keeping the county.
So do we have consensus on that, Mayor?
That sounds like it. Do we have consensus to keep it billed with the county? Okay. Now we just need to determine the fee.
So the collection method will be through the county tax bill?
Yes.
At least for this first year.
For this first year.
I'm sorry?
For this first year.
For this budget.
For this budget session.
So I will say, if we are talking, sorry, did we come to agreement on that?
That part, yes,
Yes.
unless you
No, I'm
disagree.
good with that.
Okay.
I was going to change the subject, so.
Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, on the terms of the fee, I don't think I feel comfortable raising the residential to $8 or $8.50 a month, because I keep hearing Commissioner Cooper that is a lot. That is that's doubling what some of our residents are paying right now, and that is that is a lot of money for some of our residents. So even with that $3 credit, which they can't get the first year,
Right.
that would still bring them only to $5 a month, which is still more than they're paying now. So I really want to stick with the raising residential to $6 per month, knowing that low-income populations can get that $3 credit. So to me, that points me to the tiered fee column, wanting to stay at $6 a month for residential.
Okay, we've got a tiered fee. Anybody else?
Can you pull
So-
up the,
so as I
the
understand
tiered
it,
fee, I'm sorry, formula on, can we go back to that slide for tiered fee formula?
I don't think you have a slide that shows the $6.
I have the multiples. That's all
Yes,
I have
single
here.
flat.
Here, you.
So,
There you go.
there it is. So again, it is the multiples. I went through several iterations, And again, it's sort of, for lack of a better description, an average, if you will, between an 8% customer base and an 8% customer base that has twice the impervious surface. So that's sort of how those multiples came about. What I did was I did a first pass, and then from there I looked at a number of properties and saw who was absorbing on the non-residential basis, who was absorbing most of that cost, or who would be experiencing a much more monthly or yearly payment than what they're paying now, and who was going to be getting a break. And so then from that, I took that first pass of multiples and adjusted it to try to bring everyone in line.
Did you ever run it with a half acre to 3/4 of an acre, and then?
I did. The first time I had it was, I had it 3 tiers. And what I found was, if I remember correctly, I don't have it in front of me, the half acre to 3/4 acre range was getting a better break than everyone else. And so that's when I went, or I can't remember. Anyway, there was a section in there. Oh, I remember. I went from let me get it. I had it going from a 1/4 acre to 1 acre, and then what I found was that by running the numbers for different lot sizes and different either 0 to 49 or 50 to 100% pervious, that I think it was the 1/4 acre to half acre was getting a break. And so what I did was I split that out and adjusted again, and the share was more equitable between the different sizes and impervious amounts. I don't know if that's hopefully that's understandable.
Okay. And then you also played, I would imagine, with the multipliers instead of going from 2 to 4 instead of 2 to 5.
Yes. Yes. So it was, like I said, it was several iterations, and I've got a spreadsheet with all kinds of info like that.
Okay. Just curious.
All right.
Yeah.
So we've got tiered fee has been a consideration. Anybody opposed to that?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
What was that, $6?
6. 6 to, where are you at? Base fee 6, yes.
But give an example of a tiered parcel under that methodology.
Well, again, back at the end, anything non-residential is going to be in the tiered table.
Right.
Right. And here are some. Well, that's not it. Oops.
I'm not in favor of that.
Okay.
So back to the end. Under the tiered fees, Food Line pays $1,368. I believe that they're certainly over an acre, and they have more than 50% impervious. Carteret Courts is more than an acre, but it has less than 50% impervious. Ace Hardware, believe it or not, is over an acre, but believe it or not, when you sit down and examine it from aerial photography, it has less than 50%. So it gets charged based upon that fee for greater than an acre, less than 50% impervious.
So Greg, just to clarify, in your tiered fee column, those are all fees per year, correct?
Yes.
So for Food Lion, that would be how much per month? About 115 per month.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So,
Right.
which is an increase from $4 per month. However, it's not at the level of, you know, if we were charging $5,000 per year, you know, that's over $400 a month. So it is taking an in-between approach, like you said, and it's because we need to address the stormwater issues in our town. And so we all are going to have to pay more for these.
Yeah, and that was the whole point of the tiered was, for me, when I set about it, was to try to, given where we're at right now, not to what some would call excessively charge non-residential, and at the same time not raising the residential, the amount paid by residential properties a great deal.
Okay.
But what's your concern? Where would you like to be at?
Well, let me answer that by slightly making an alternative. In my opinion, if we charge $6 per parcel and we allowed an environmental mitigation credit of $3 and we did not start CIP 1, 2, and 3 until we got the grants, we would in fact raise $210,000 and meet everything except starting the CIP projects 1, 2, and 3. And that's my recommendation. So take CIP off the fence till we get the money, because we're worried about getting the money. All right, write the grants, get the money. Then we take on CIP 1, 2, and 3. In the meantime, we go to per parcel $6 with a $3 credit for environmental mitigation in accordance with the manual.
Well, the manual, if you're talking about the income credit, yes, it would be 50%. But when it comes to...
I wasn't talking about the income credit because I think you stated that you haven't done that yet. If we have an income credit, I'm all for it, but I understood we didn't have it finalized yet.
No, it's in there.
Okay. Well, I'm in favor of the income credit.
It's a 50%
based on
income.
Base. Yes. Okay, I'm in favor of that. I misunderstood what you said.
Yeah, but I don't think we can do that the first year. Wasn't that the statement you made?
If you desire, I think we can.
Oh, we can.
Yeah. No, that's the income credit.
Yes.
Now the other credits for rain barrels and all the other things.
That's a
separate application process.
And that's they are given in terms of percentages.
Correct.
For instance, a rain barrel gets you 10%.
Right.
A rain garden gets you 10%.
Right.
Whereas the income credit is also a percentage, it's 50%, which on $6 is $3.
And I misunderstood that. I thought you weren't ready with the income credit. I'm very much in favor of the income credit.
Yeah. So do you still stand with your alternative of $6 per parcel, environmental credit $3?
Yes.
And then mixing CIP 1, 2, and 3?
And an income credit for 50% if you meet the guideline.
I think what Greg is saying, though, I don't think there is a $3 environmental credit, Mayor Harker.
Okay.
There is no $3 environmental credit.
You have to apply for it and you get a % off.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Income credit.
Okay. Yeah, because so the $3 is the same as the 50. Yeah, I got it. Sorry, I'm sorry.
And that can't be done the first year.
It's getting late in my time.
Because there's a lag, right. It won't be able to, the environmental credit won't be able to be done the first year, from what I understand, because of the lag, as we talked about.
No, he's willing to start that, but it's just going to take some time to set it up. And you're not going to get the bill until January anyway.
Okay.
True.
Bill in August, pay in January.
Tax bill.
Tax bill.
Okay.
So Bucky, I can get on board with abandoning the budget for the CIP, making budget for CIP priority and focus on grants. My suggestion would be
What do we
for the
mix up?
first year to go double flat, but I want to work towards tiered. I want to work towards what Greg has come up with because I like it and I think non-residential should be more accountable. What if we did $5 for residential, double to 10 for non-residential, and that would give us 183,300
By parcel.
by parcel. Yes. So we would start showing non-residential that we want them to be more accountable. They would be paying double. I just don't want to roll this out all at once and be like, bam, Food Lion, you've got $1,300. Do I want to get there eventually? Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
I would support your alter.
Okay. That sounds like a compromise.
I'll support that.
How about Sarah?
So, Paula, did you say increase from $4 to $5 a month for residential?
For residential.
And
That's
then
the 2,500
increase
people.
from $4 to $10 a month for non-residential for
Yeah,
the
as
first
long-
year.
Yeah, yeah.
So that would be 120 per year for non-residential. Right, 10 times 12, 120. I think
Which
that's,
that's a lot
The
less
math
than
works.
1,300, but if we start doing the education now and saying, you see these rates going up, they're gonna continue to go up.
Right.
But, I mean, it's kind of establishing that, we're kind of, making a separation between residential and non-residential this year.
And it's a baby step.
Yeah, it is a baby step, but it makes a statement that,
For grant application.
So when you start this educational program, letting them know that there's, reasons by future increases, but we don't know what those future increases will necessarily be for this board. I mean, you guys will have some numbers in front of you, so you just want to do a general PSA about this, or how would you like to roll out that message? That's something we can do a little bit later.
I'd like to delegate that to the mayor.
Thank you very much.
No, but I believe, education is really important.
So do I. It's critical.
Why the town needs to understand what
Correct.
this is, why it's happening.
Correct.
All these steps. And I think slowly rolling it out is better than just dropping it
It's
off.
non-residential, they don't get our newsletter. Do they? Non-resident.
Goes out.
Food Line, do they get our, Food Line don't get our newsletter. do
They get a bill.
They get a bill.
They get a bill.
bill.
Yeah.
But we need to let them know.
They need to read a newsletter.
Well, the point is, I think there's a consensus that we
Yes.
need to do a strong educational thing and take a baby step this year.
Alrighty, so with the proposal that Paula has on the table, are we doing any income tax credit with that?
Yes.
Okay.
does that still work, Paul, Commissioner Gillikin?
Is that?
yeah, that'll work.
Okay. Because I am concerned about if you roll this out, what the Beaufort Housing Authority will have to deal with that increase, because, I mean, they just don't have the funds to deal with a lot of,
I
yeah.
agree with it.
Alrighty, because it will bear the burden of extra that the government doesn't pay. They're gonna have to pay for that, the residents will. So just want to keep that in mind. So I think we've got some consensus of, one of them is that we're going to keep the billing on the tax record. Okay, so that's one. And then we're looking at going from $4 to $5 for the residential, 4 to 10 for non-residential, and income tax credits.
And that's the amount.
Christie,
Minus
do you
2%.
have, I'd like to ask Christie, because she's the one who's gonna have to make this work.
Jump in here, Kristen.
Want to make sure that you have
This is the minimum that we need,
the ability to do the things that have been proposed.
and the loan payment, but that doesn't include the capital.
I can't hear you.
I'm okay keeping it on the tax bill. Administratively, that's going to be
Yeah, a lot
the
easier.
easiest.
Right.
To Commissioner LaPiccolo's comments earlier, folks, if there's not a homeowners association and they don't get a utility bill, there would have to be another system set up to bill non-residential and a separate tracking. So that is something to consider going forward. I hear Greg's point about whether it should be
Well, it certainly
for
needs,
this year. It's gonna meet the debt payment.
yes.
But,
But we've not really set up, as I understand it, any expense line items for stormwater as of yet. And so this coming year is going to be sort of see how it all shakes out to adjust next year. Is the way we were planning to go forward.
And also to add to that suggestion is that we're not going to do CIP projects 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
Until we
Well,
get,
until
until we
we
get the grant.
Until we get grants.
Absolutely look
Right.
for grants.
And there are several things that are out there, and we've got things mechanism-wise that helped us even get the USDA, and there could be small things. The stormwater utility funds, not the stormwater utility funds, but the watershed restoration plan. That was one of the things that we've been put out there that we could help. We probably need to recirculate that too, because it has a lot of mitigation tools in there as to how property owners can help keep stormwater onto their property. All right, so we're gonna delay that.
So Christie, I think what you're saying is there are about 2,500 residential properties at $5. That comes out to 150 grand a year. And there are about 250 non-residential.
237.
Yeah, 237.
At $10 comes out to about 30,000. So there's about $180,000 before we get to projects 1, 2, and 3. That's about what your math had.
Yeah, 183, but yeah, basically.
Close enough for
Yeah.
government work.
Yeah.
So that generates, again, what we generate now is roughly $135,000 a year. So you're generating roughly $50,000 more a year. And so with the debt payment, you're cutting a little bit into operations.
Well, the other thing that's not taken into account is the income credits.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You don't know what that is.
Correct.
yeah, we won't.
So that's why Greg's basically saying with the operations, we'll have to be very careful in that regard with expenditures as we move forward over the next, into FY '25.
Right.
A lot of education, yeah.
Yeah, we've sort of segregated some stormwater expenses, but they're really going to be segregated this coming year. So, staff could come back to you next year and say, this isn't cutting it, because we have operational expenses that we've had to put off now that we know what we're exactly spending on everything.
And I will still assert that there will be some expenses in the general fund that are associated with the stormwater program.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree, and I want to get to the tiered system so this enterprise fund is better funded. It's just, don't want to dump it on everybody all at one time.
In terms of the grants, so we've said grants. Is this the responsibility of our grant writer? Like, who would be in charge of looking for the grant opportunities, collecting the data, applying for the opportunities?
Yeah,
It's time consuming.
Myself and the grant writer.
So I think we need to think about that as well as we're moving forward. We've talked about we need a Parks and Rec staff person. I've talked about how we need some sort of environmental sustainability staff person. I mean, it is important to go after these grants, but, we need somebody who has the time, the expertise, the understanding, but it can really benefit the town if we can get this kind of money, like Commissioner Oliver is saying. So just something to think about for the future.
I'll donate a small amount of time to the grant since I'm the one proposing this, leaving a gap.
I love it, volunteerism at its best.
I'm sure that's on record. That's on record.
That's fine.
All right, we all heard that, and it's for the record. Okay, very good. All right, so it sounds like we've got a consensus and we can move on. So we'll have all this presented to us. Public will be able to hear this as well at our next meeting.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you very much, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
All right, so now we're going to, does staff have everything they need? Is everything well documented? You understand where we're going before I move on?
We just need to go over fees and charges now, Mayor.
Okay, so the fees and charges.
Christie?
I'll just refer to, I think, Elizabeth, if you can put this on the board and excuse the handwriting, but that was the easiest way to show
the number of changes here, but in an email previously, you received the fee schedule that had some markups. It had some yellow highlights with some blue writing. So we can walk through these, and then I'll just ask if you have questions that each department head that submitted them can come up and explain to you if you have questions about those particular fees. The first next page, Elizabeth, please. Okay. Just highlights the changes based on the parking fees that you previously adopted at the $1.50 an hour and at the $3 an hour in the east and west lots. So those are the changes there. You can the items in blue are the current fees. The items in yellow are the proposed fees that would begin July 1st. The next section is on fire safety fees, and we can go through these, or I could, or Todd, if you'd like for Tony to discuss those, or see if we have questions and then have them
See
come
if
up.
the board just has some questions, if that's the
Okay.
pleasure of the board, Mayor.
Okay, all right. Commissioner LaPiccolo, you have any questions about the fees?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Gilligan?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Cooper?
None.
Thank you. Commissioner Oliver?
The only question I have is, has there been any discussion or proposal on anything having to do with noise?
With
Not
noise?
in these
Fee-
fire.
Fees or penalties?
It would be through your ordinance, wouldn't it?
No, we've not discussed
Not
that,
anything
Commissioner
new.
Hall.
Okay, that's the only question I have.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Spiegler?
No questions.
All right, thank you.
The next page has some life safety violation fines and fee changes. You can just see we've marked out what's there currently and have provided some more specific information there in the yellow items below.
Anybody have any questions on that section? All right, carry on.
The next page has lots of yellow, but again, just defining these a bit more specifically with some more verbiage to explain them. Those are on the general fire and safety violation fines, and then also the mandatory operational fire permits.
All right, any questions on that section? You can continue.
Okay, the next section is on planning and inspection fees. There is a slight change there in the text. It would be any one of the following criteria, and then you can see the other changes there highlighted in yellow.
Any questions on that area for Christie? Okay.
Okay, the next section is residential construction fees. And the base fee as well as the fee per square foot has been changed in some of those areas.
Okay.
Any
questions?
Are there?
Is the change in the highlight or
The
the blue on this?
The blue is the current fee.
Correct
The
fee.
yellow highlight is the proposed fee.
Proposed fee.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner LaPiccolo, you have a question?
I was just looking at the fee for working without a permit. I know we've had, issues in town with people sometimes doing things and not having permits. I just wanted to see what type of, our regular permit fee is where is that on this?
So the fee for working without a permit is actually on the next page under
Double.
miscellaneous, and it's double the permit fee,
Okay.
all the way at the bottom of that page.
Oh, yeah.
And our regular permit fee is $75, building installation permit?
Yes, sir. And 15 cents a square foot.
Any further questions on that?
I've got kind of a general question. Have you had the opportunity compare any of these fees to neighboring communities?
Yes, yes, we are definitely in line, if not a little bit less.
Right. And I'll share with you, that's on building permits.
Yes.
How about other fees?
Yes, sir, I know we've done cemetery, we've compared cemetery plots, and we're still quite a bit lower than surrounding cemeteries. I think we're right in line with golf cart as far as other communities that do golf cart registrations. There's a small increase recommended for that this year.
I was actually going to ask about that. Thanks for pointing that out. So I did see that you increased the golf carts from 75 to 100 per year. So is that pretty standard across communities? And the reason I asked is because the kayak rental fee is also $100 per year. You're smiling. I'd like that we're increasing the fees on golf carts because I do think they should pay at least as much as a kayak rental. But is that pretty standard?
Yeah, do you know Emerald? Yes.
Okay.
And there is a lot of staff time involved in that fee as far as the inspections and the cost of the plates and the tracking of it. So
give me a good reason why I got to tell and I might have to tell my neighbor why it went from 75 to 100 because he's complaining now about 75, and now I got to tell him it's 100.
well, we feel like the fees is in line because of the cost of the plates, the cost of the system to track them, and the staff time that's involved. Many times folks come in without all the proper paperwork, so we sometimes end up going through an inspection more than one time because they either haven't brought their insurance or they haven't brought their certificate showing that they own it. And then there's a checklist. Sometimes they don't have all the items that are required, so they have to go home and refit the golf cart and come back and prove that they have those. So our finance staff handles those inspections, and Friday afternoons are very busy, and I can tell you that there are multiple times that they have to do a cart more than once because they don't meet the requirements the first time through.
Who provides the education to make sure they have the information right the first time? I mean, people do not read sometimes, but is there a big information push?
Yeah, it is on the website.
Okay.
And that's available, and we do have on the phone tree, you can call about golf carts, and a lot of people call and ask to make sure that they have the right information, but
okay, good. All right.
Some just show up.
And what, if any, insurance requirements are there for golf carts?
I don't know the specifics, but they do have to provide their insurance certificate showing that they have coverage on the vehicle.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know the limits. That's what I was
understand.
Responding to.
Any further questions? Okay, you can continue.
Okay, I think we're over under commercial construction fees under planning and inspection. Again, the numbers in blue are the current fees, and the items in yellow are the recommended changes. And then there's some changes as well under miscellaneous permitting for the commercial fees. The next page that has changes, just please stop me if you have a question. Solid waste collection fees. And for the residential ones, you actually have already approved these when we got the increase from GFL for the CPI, so that change is just listed. The commercial changes will take effect in July, so those are the fees that the commercial accounts will be charged for the compactor use, and then if they have any rollouts for recycling or solid waste, and then the cardboard fee.
We lost the screen over here, Tracy. There we go. Thank you.
Elizabeth, it's probably about maybe 4 pages down, and we get to the stormwater fees. So that will be adjusted based on the information that you discussed this evening. But currently it's $4 a month, and then we had the $6 monthly residential fee in there, but we'll adjust that based on what was discussed tonight.
Okay.
The next page has the parking and vehicle fees, and the change there was with the golf carts, and we've talked about that. And then the last page is just other miscellaneous fees. There were two changes there with the walking tour permit and then the non-motorized vehicle permit.
When was the last time parking passes were addressed for rates? The last time they were increased or?
I don't believe that parking passes have been increased since we implemented them. 2018.
Because I know we did raise parking rates downtown.
We did rates, but the board decided to not change any of the parameters or the rates associated with the passes this year.
Okay, thank you, Christy. Appreciate it.
Quick question. Todd, which items are we going to have included in the study that you're doing?
Sorry, I elaborate a little bit more.
You're having to do a study for stormwater fees and for, we've engaged, in our budget is a study for fees. What does it cover?
This for system development fees, is that what you're?
Yes. I believe you've got $25,000 in the budget for that study. I'm trying to remember what it covers, scope of that study.
So, I don't know, Christy, you might be better prepared to answer that question. You or Greg, but.
We're talking about the system development fee study that we talked about at the last meeting. There's not any, we haven't done the study yet, so there's no recommended change in those fees for this current FY25.
Okay, but again, the last time that was done was 2018, I think you said?
Yeah, it was 18 or 19.
I think it was 19.
It was
FY20, they were implemented in FY20.
And so my question is, that study also included at that time, as I remember, sewer rate adjustments.
Not the study for system development fees. Are you talking about user
Well,
rates?
I noticed looking back historically that our sewer rates changed in, let me look at my thing, changed effective 7/1/18. What was done at that time
Did we
to
have a
support
water?
that?
We did use, we had Rivers do a model rate study, but that was a user fee. Those were the user fees.
So that was a water and sewer
That's-
rate study
that's-
versus system
good.
development fees.
Okay. So the last time that was done was for the effective July 1/18.
I believe that's correct.
Okay, so my question to the board is, I would like to have us consider looking at redoing that study to see if those rates are still appropriate.
So just to rephrase that, I don't disagree with you.
No, help me.
So we're not only looking at revisiting the system development fees and what those fees are set at, but also conducting a water and sewer rate study.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
We will get quotes. I will tell you that water and sewer rate study probably is, it's not gonna be a couple $1,000s. So we may need to come back to the board with a budget amendment after July 1, but we can get some quotes for that.
Okay, the reason I brought it up is it's in the rate table.
Yes, sir. Right.
All right, any further questions on the FY25 budget? Any further comments you wish to make? Okay. Looks like we're ready to move on to project updates.
Thank you, Mayor. So with those changes, we will get you an updated list from the one that I gave you at the beginning of the meeting, or the beginning of this part of the agenda. And just as a reminder, our next meeting will have a public hearing. It's June the 10th. We have advertised for the public hearing in accordance with the general statutes. So any changes that are made after the public hearing would constitute a need to re-advertise the public hearing and then set another date for consideration of the budget. So with the changes that you've made, that constitutes all the changes that I'm aware of, and we move forward to the public hearing. That's the next step in the process.
Okay, all right. Yes.
I did want to ask about setting aside some money for a dog park. When is that done?
Setting aside money for a dog park. You wanted to talk about that?
We just got a dog park, another dog park?
In town.
Okay, so closer than Freedom Park?
Mm-hmm.
You probably would need to have some investigation as to where it's gonna go, the cost that's involved, which you don't have that currently right now. And at the 11th hour, it's gonna be kind of tough for the staff to get out there and to make that happen before we get to our next session.
That's fine. Is that something that the town can look into cost for maybe even next year?
So do some investigation?
Mhm.
Yes, well, we can see what that can
If
cost.
that's, yeah, if that's the consensus of the board
Does
to
the board
direct the
wish
staff
to-
to do that, we'll certainly
That'd be great.
do that.
So just to have a conversation, is the board interested in having the town investigate options for a dog park in town? Or-
Mayor, may I ask this, because I would want to make sure this impacts the cost of the park, and Mr. LaPiccolo has mentioned this to me in the
Okay.
past. John, just for the record, do you have a specific location that you would like for us to look at?
Well, it's not for me. The Parks and Rec Board has identified locations, so I would lean on them for where their location, their recommendation would be. I know that there's some low-hanging fruit that they presented to us in their Parks and Rec packet. So I think we should pay attention to what the Parks and Rec Board is telling us and what kind of needs there are in town. And I think every year we should look at that and address that.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm clear.
All right, well, if we're going to start making a wish list, I do want to also ask the board if they would consider, last year we set aside funds and money, not just for to develop the Mayor's Conservation Program, but we were able to fund an effort through Plastic Free by the Sea to put out some information. They provided the bags and banners for that group to make an impact in changing habits. And I would just ask the board if they would consider finding the same amount of money, which was $6,000 that was set aside, to continue to run this program. And as you can see, we have our students that are coming in that are adopting a drain. We would like to see that project continue, but we don't want to see them have to pay for the paint. So these are things that could also fund initiatives to continue on with the program. And if there's any consideration, if the board would allow for that to happen, I would appreciate that. Any concerns or any questions about setting aside that amount of money to fund that program?
Does it have to go, it's just for the Mayor's Conservation Program generally, it's not necessarily for Plastic Free by the Sea?
It's not Plastic Free by the Sea. We just partnered with them. That was our first initiative. But
so it could be something else?
It could be totally something else. Adopt the Drain. I've been working with Rachel to identify other programs, but some of that requires some skin in the game in order to keep that going. And no, it's not necessarily, I would like to see us expand partnerships with others as well.
I would like to see a continuation of money into to the plastic thing. Who held that the meeting?
Of the Plastic Free by the Sea?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Who was that? Harriet, yes.
Yeah.
I like, to continue to be able to, also help her with some funding along that. She did a fantastic job in holding the meetings and informing the community about that. The one that I attended, there was quite a few people there. That was during the day, but I think the night one was successful as well.
Mm-hmm. So once again, this is not strictly for Plastic Free by the Sea.
Right.
This is an initiative that
I was going to say, Mayor Harker, I would be very willing to support that. What I would like to see is some sort of I don't know if it's a report, one of these meetings, but it'd be great to see what the results were from last year, what impacts it's making in the community. So even if it's just a presentation of, hey, this is what we did in this setting or whatever you think would be appropriate, I think that would be great.
All right, because we just had the one program and that was just recently started. It was a delay in that, but I definitely understand you want to update
But I
on
think
that.
it gives awareness to the great things that this program can do and show that we're continuing forward with it.
I agree wholeheartedly. Good suggestion. So we have got a consensus? Thank you so much for that.
Sure.
All right, appreciate it. All right.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
All right, now we can move on to project updates.
Yes, ma'am. And I'll hand out my report here, Mayor and Board. And I'm just do a high-level review, but if you have questions, please stop and ask me.
Okay.
More paper.
Another tree cut down.
Sustainability. Here we go.
Elizabeth, did I give you a copy of that?
Town provided, yeah, not me, I didn't go by it. Town provided that passing water. I know what this is. It's on real camera.
If you got an extra copy, I'll give it to
Oh,
Elizabeth.
here.
Thank you, sir.
Then you get the refillable, refillable kiosks.
So, Mayor and Board, just want to give you a update on some things we've been working on. This has pretty much been on my, it's really collectively our team, our management team's work list. So I thank Greg, Kyle, Paul, Christy, well, the whole staff really for working on these projects, but I just want to bring you up to speed on some things we're doing. The USDA funded water and sewer infrastructure projects, which also actually includes the storm drain, storm collection system improvements. The construction contracts have been executed and they've been reviewed by USDA. Greg is scheduling a meeting with contractors, and once those contracts have been approved, work is expected to begin after July 4th. So we're going to also need to do a big media and public information program to let folks know when and where those projects are going to be and when they will commence. Some of these will have impacts on garbage collection, so there's going to be a lot of coordination and a lot of publicity following that. We have annual street resurfacing projects that, if you've not noticed, they are already underway. The current project involves the resurfacing of 8 street segments and the construction of connectors to the BOC West subdivision at George Street and Pineview Boulevard. Resurfacing work began the week of May 20th with resurfacing of 2 segments having been completed since the start, including Joyce Boulevard and the 100 block of Fairview Drive. And I know Rachel sent an email out this afternoon. Actually tomorrow, starting at 7 a.m. and lasting approximately 4 hours, the 200 block of Live Oak Street will be closed for utility repairs. And do want to call your attention, she's worked really hard, and it's a good feature that she's added to the website. And Elizabeth, if you get a chance to pull it up, there are updates on projects. It's www.beaufortnc.org/projects. And you can see where these projects are and what their status is. So Rachel, thank you. You've done a great job with that. So just want you to be aware of that. The other streets that are involved here, just to recap this for you, includes Fairview Drive from Live Oak Street to Jones Avenue. As mentioned, Joyce Boulevard. Campen Road from Caraway Drive to just before the Eastport Apartments, the 200 and 300 blocks of Moore Street, the 400 and 500 blocks of Pollock Street, 200 block of Marsh Street, the George Street connector to Bow Coast West, and the Pineview Street connector also to Bow Coast West. The update on the high rate infiltration basin project to re-permit. The HRIB is on hold pending a desired meeting with the representatives of DEQ, which Greg is attempting to schedule now. So just be aware of that. He's trying to make that happen for us. Not sure that we're going to make it by June 30th, but nonetheless, once Greg has departed, and which we've had quite a bit of fun with Greg trying to get him to stay, but once he's gone, please be assured that we'll continue that effort through his replacement. Pump station number 7 replacement project. We have offered several designs in several different locations to the school system for the approval of locations and replacement of the station. We have not been successful in negotiating an agreement with them, but nonetheless, we continue that effort. I will say that the station is near capacity, and there is some growth that is going to contribute additional capacity to that pump station. And if we don't come to an agreement pretty soon, we're going to have to put a hold on some growth opportunity, and specifically the project over at the old Beaufort Elementary School. We have a lot of concern about that. So we do need to come to an agreement or an understanding with the school system as quickly as possible, and Greg has made every possible effort to do that.
What is the objection by the school board, school system?
We're not quite clear on that, Mr. Cooper. With each proposed location that has been presented, they have given us some initial indications that they were okay with it, but we can't seem to get a firm approval. The Professional Park Stormwater Study, which is funded by the Lassie Grant, the assessment phase of the project is nearing completion. This phase will be followed by the development of alternatives to address flooding within the Palmetto Plantation subdivision, especially along Meeting Street. And this has been something that's been a problem for quite some time. And it's been called to the board's attention repetitively. But the work is on schedule to meet the late November goal for issuance of findings and recommendations. So you can put that on your calendar, look for some recommendations coming from the study. The Unified Development Ordinance update, I believe the board's probably all familiar with where we are with that. Kyle's done a great job getting the information out. They're working on logistics of the project with our consultant, who will be in Beaufort on June 26th and 27th to discuss the development of the new UDO. Citizens are encouraged to attend the public input session on June 27th at 6 p.m. in the train depot. The other dates here are June 26th, 6 p.m., meeting with the Board of Commissioners. June 27th at 3 p.m., meeting with the Planning Board. I skipped over June 27th, 1 p.m. with the UDO Steering Committee. And then again, the public input session is June 27th at 6 p.m. On our Economic Strategic Planning Project, our Main Street program with the Department of Commerce, we have assembled a working group, and they had their first meeting on May 2nd and reviewed the expectations of the project, the roles of members, as well as the project schedule. The second session is scheduled for Thursday, June 6th at 3 p.m. During this session, our state economic liaison will review the results of a survey taken from the working group and discuss strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities for the town from an economic perspective. And Kyle is heading that effort up. Thank you, Kyle. You're doing a great job. 400 Pollock Street has been a property of interest for the board. To date, the property owner has been asked to provide information to our attorney about the existing encroachment of the structure and insurance coverage, as well as other documentation for the project to move forward to our Board of Commissioners. The current issue is, again, an encroachment of the existing structure over the sidewalk along Pollock Street and the liability associated with that. So we are waiting on those insurance requirements from the property owner. Pardon my note here, I didn't amend this. Greg had made a comment on the Trestle Walk project and the raised grant application. We are looking for a response on the raised grant application from NCDOT in the month of June. We have successfully received a commitment for donation of property from NCDOT for property located at the end of West Beaufort Road. And I will share a copy of that map with you, Mayor and Board, of the property. Elizabeth's got it also on the screen there for you. Thank you. Elizabeth's right on top of that for me. So what you see represented on the screen is the end of West Beaufort Road. To the north of that is Highway 70. And what's just off the screen to the left is Turner Street. That property was owned by NCDOT, and we have executed the deeds for that, and that is now town property. Although it's not been represented with the GIS, those changes have not been reflected there yet. I don't know, Ari, if you had any comments about that or not.
No, the recording of the deed is legally the significant item, and it does take GIS a little bit of time to update. That's almost universal from county to county. Todd, were you going to talk about the other property also?
I wasn't specifically going to call it out. I'm handing a map out to the board. There is another parcel that we are working on adjacent to this, and it predominantly involves the Town Creek area, and all of this ties back into the Trestle Walk project. But we have verbal agreement with that property owner to donate that property to the town as well. So,
was there a deed?
I would expect that to be finalized by y'all's next meeting. The deed is ready. We're dotting some I's and crossing some T's to get it executed, and to make sure we've got the right person with the LLC to execute it, just authority-wise, but we're in the short rows on that one.
Thank you. Yeah, and that parcel actually also includes some survey work, which we have incurred, so just for the board's awareness of that. The RAISE grant, just quickly back to that, the RAISE grant, if awarded, will fund all of the planning aspects of the project. It does all the site review work and such, so it doesn't actually pay for the construction of the Trestle Walk project, but it's just the planning work alone. We also had a Golden Leaf grant application for the stormwater project in the vicinity of Ann, Hill, and Fulford Streets. We were not selected in the first round of funding. I think that was probably back in, I think it's probably April was the first round, maybe early May. There is a second round that we expect for awards to be announced in June, so we are hopeful that we might still get a grant for that project. Of course, we've talked about the Resilient Coastal Communities Program grant application. I appreciate Commissioner Spiegler's help with the staff on this. Thank you very much for reviewing the application. It's due this Friday through the Division of Coastal Management. We're applying for $100,000 no match grant to fund ordinance updates that address resiliency through the stormwater management, shoreline protection, construction standards, and low intensity development regulations. If chosen for funding, these resiliency updates will be the first phase of amendments in the creation of a new UDO. Kyle, especially Michelle, thank you for your work putting that together, as well as Rachel. There's another aspect of that which involves, I believe, the end of Moore Street. Rachel, you want to just mention what that includes as well?
It is a little bit more than just Moore Street. It encompasses a larger asking for funding to create engineering master planning for all of the street ends, including Main Street, Moore Street, and wrapping those all in one large project. And we're asking for $85,000 for that.
Thank you. There is a re-entry simulation scheduled for September 10th. This is something the mayor has been particularly interested in and requested. And Mayor, I don't know if you want to comment on that one.
Through Trillium, the reentry stimulation is something that I encourage all the commissioners, if you have the time, to take this program. It is talking about taking the motivated, justice-involved individuals once they are released. They are going through a program that will allow for them to successfully reenter the community. but we also have to understand the troubles that they have in order to get there. So the simulation puts you into their perspective of being released and maybe having information or not having information, and how difficult it can be to navigate the situation, which sometimes makes them stay in trouble or go back into jail. So I had taken this simulation. It was very eye-opening, and they're going to be hosting this, I believe, at the Beaufort Hotel on June 10th. And we should
September
be
10th.
September the 10th. And would like for all of you, if you're able to take that simulation program, you will be very much surprised as to what is involved in getting back into the community, especially when you're motivated to change. We've all had second chances, and many of us have had third and fourth, but we probably have not had as many stop gaps in order to get there, but you'll get an idea and perspective from their eyes on how they happen to navigate. We've got a lot of businesses in our community that have been supporting and employing those that are coming out, and many of them are doing successful and are doing well. So the warden at the Newport prison will tell you that they're going to come out anyway, and they're going to be your neighbors. So you want them to be as remediated or get involved in the community in a much more positive way than having to be going back and making a negative impact in your community. So once again, it was great to meet Trillium at one of the meetings that we were in. I think, who was there? Paul, yeah, and was there a commissioner with him?
Sarah was there as well.
Sarah was there as well, and heard about that. So I reached out to them, and they said that they would actually do a entry simulation here on this side. So it's open to the general public, but once again, just to encourage our commissioners to attend if they have the ability to do so. September the 10th is.
Do you know the time, Paul?
8:30. 8:30. 8:30 to 9 registration. Okay, and it runs until? Around noon. Okay.
Thank you. Mayor, thank you. Moving on to policy development, I just wanted to make the board aware there's some things that you have talked about. So some of this, I don't think any of this is going to be a total surprise to you, but some areas of policy development that will come to you for consideration. Of course, we've talked about our budget adoption. We've talked about stormwater enterprise policy, nonprofit funding policy. That's been part of our discussions with the budget. Adoption of a multi-year financial plan moving forward into the second and third quarters of this of this calendar year. There's been expressions to me of adoption of an ordinance regulating the release of helium balloons, or just balloons. So we have a model ordinance for that. Something that has also been on our radar for several months now is a facility naming policy, an overnight parking ordinance, updates to our noise ordinance. Also, as part of our budget process, we recognize that we have not adopted a formal vehicle and motorized equipment replacement policy, so we will be looking at that as well. Additions to the golf cart ordinance. You had probably recognized in the schedule of fees and charges, we do charge a fee, but we need a little bit more explanation, or I guess regulation where that's concerned, and that's something Elizabeth's called to my attention. And it looks like I duplicated the multi-year financial plan there, so I apologize for that. As far as committees, the mayor and I have talked about a couple of things, and there's also been some expressions of interest, both with Affordable Housing Committee and the Public Arts Commission, and those are some things that are for the mayor and the board to have further conversations about moving forward and how you want to proceed with that. But those were just the updates, Mayor and Board. Happy to answer any questions that you might have, but those are some things that are key items on our list.
Okay. Very good update. Let's see. Commissioner LaPiccolo, you have any questions?
No question.
All right. Commissioner Gilligan?
Thanks, Todd. Can we add, or is the parking policy still on the list?
Parking policy.
So we were gonna look at making a policy that stated the intention of the parking fund and clear up some misconceptions with nonprofits that thought that the parking fund was available to
yes.
be given to them?
Yes, ma'am. I think I included that under nonprofit
I
funding
thought
policy.
that might be related.
But I could, is that the appropriate terminology, or should we change that?
I mean, the nonprofit funding kind of misunderstanding has been related to parking.
So they could be two independent things. I can see that.
Yeah, they could be.
Okay. I'll make a note of that.
Thank you. Otherwise, no other questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cooper?
No.
Thank you. Commissioner Oliver?
None.
Thank you. Commissioner Spiegler?
No questions.
Thank you. With that being said, I need to have a motion to go into closed session pursuant to the North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A and 3, and North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A and 4. Got a motion? Can I get all in favor say aye?
Aye.
All right. Quick break, come back. Staff, thank you for hanging in there with us.